Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was in Game of Thrones. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by GalenTsukiKage, link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. 283 AC, Red Mountains of Dorne. Arrowed, the sun beating down on them. The sun felt like it was scorching already and they weren't even close to Sunspear. He could only imagine how it would be there. They were nearing the tower. So close, yet so far. His gut told him the sun wouldn't be the last obstacle in his way today. Good thing he'd sent Naruto ahead to, if not take care of the enemies, at least stall them so they could not run. Hopefully the younger boy still really, wouldn't be hurt. Naruto had proven himself a good replacement for his mother in protecting the Stark family. His only failure, if it could be called that, was losing track of Lyanna after the tourney of Harrenhal. These were the thoughts of one-eared Ned Stark. The Quiet Wolf. Lord of Winterfell. Now Warden of the North, probably. To his friend and brother-in-arms, Robert Baratheon, the war seemed to be over. He sat on the throne. Never mind, they still hadn't secured the one thing that started this damn war in the first place, Ned's sister Lyanna Stark. He rode toward the Tower of Joy, along with Howland Reed, Lord William Dustin, Ethan Glower, Martin Castle, Theowell and Sir Mark Ryswell. All men of the North, all good men. And none like this heat. The whole war got its starting beats when the now former prince of the Seven Kingdoms Rhaegar Targaryen had stolen her. Usually there is no problem a prince taking a young maiden along them. The problem in this case. Lyanna was promised to Robert Baratheon, the future Lord Paramount of the Stormlands, for marriage. Ned's older brother Brandon had taken umbrage and rode south to meet with the king himself to demand the return of their sister. The king had imprisoned Brandon and demanded that Rickard, Lord Stark, Ned's, Lyanna's and Brandon's father, come to court to answer for his son's misdeeds. Rickard had done so, only to be captured as well. When demanding a trial by combat for the king's imagined slights, the king had declared he would agree and declared fire as his representative and lit Rickard on fire. Brandon was forced to watch, unable to help his father. He was given a chance. A rope had been wrapped around his neck and a sword placed right out of his reach. He had been told he could freely save his father from the flames, he just needed to cut the rope and free his father. Brandon strangled himself to death while crying for his father and trying to reach for the blade. Then the king had declared Ned and Robert were to come before the king, along with the man raising them, Lord Jon Arryn, Warden of the East, and reaffirm their loyalty. That had been the last straw. The banners were called. Ned rode to the north, Robert rode to the Stormlands. Ned had come home to Winterfell. Naruto's last orders from Ned's father were to guard Ned's younger brother Benjen with his life. He had kept Benjen safe, training the younger boy when Ned arrived. They had gathered the men and Ned rode south, with Naruto acting as his right hand. Benjen remained at Winterfell. His father had told him he'd never seen such ferocity as with Naruto's mother on the battlefield. Ned believed the same held true for the son. Anytime Ned felt he was about to die in the middle of battle, he turned and saw Naruto there, guarding his back and butchering any would-be attackers. The way he swung a greatsword with a single hand and another sword in the other, carving all who stood against them, was awe-inspiring. That was why he sent Naruto ahead to find Lyanna while he moved to King's Landing to finally put an end to a Targaryen rule. The man was one who would stand toe-to-toe with any Kingsguard. Naruto had even faced Barristan the Bold and came out on top. So, it was strange when he laid his eyes upon the sight in front of the tower. Naruto, clad in his lighter-than-normal armor, sitting in front of the tower, his back to the tower. The younger man's legs were crossed, his greatsword leaning on the big rock he was sitting on. Down on the ground in front of the rock Naruto sat upon, there were 3 Kingsguards in front of the rock, patiently waiting, guarding the entrance to the tower. One was Sir Arthur Dayne, Sword of the Morning. Next to him were Sir Oswell Whent the Black Bat and Lord Commander Gerald Hightower the White Bull. What had happened? The Kingsguard were still here. So was Naruto. Naruto? What is this? Ned yelled up at the younger man. Ned, calm down. Naruto replied patiently. Calm down. I sent you here to bring back my sister, and here you are, waiting with these traitors. Ned raged. Naruto remained silent for a moment, let out a sigh, and then stood up and jumped down from the rock. When Naruto was firmly on the ground again, he didn't reach for the blade leaning against the rock. He turned to Ned and stared right into his eyes. We can't move her. Not yet. Naruto spoke simply. She is my friend and as such, until she can be safely moved, we'll not be going anywhere. None of us. Start making sense, man. Speak plainly. Ned barked. Naruto looked at him for a moment, glanced at Sir Dane, and spoke. I arrived here a while ago. When I arrived, I requested entrance to the tower and was denied. Sir Dane and I then had brief altercation. Neither could get the upper hand and some information rose to our knowledge. After the knowledge surfaced, neither wished to continue the fight, so we came to an agreement in which I was given momentary access to the tower while unarmed to assess conditions of Lyanna being here. We agreed, I and the 3 Kingsguards along with the woman tending to Lyanna, that she cannot be moved yet. Ned processed Naruto's words. I want to see her. Ned spoke, gritting his teeth. Arthur looked to the younger man, then nodded towards Naruto. Same rule, you leave your weapon. Naruto leaned back against a rock, watching as Ned's face soured, yet Ned did as asked and left his sword with one of the men with him. Ned came to stand in front of Arthur, who blocked the passage to the tower, simply staring into the older man's eyes. Arthur nodded and moved out of the way, allowing Ned to walk up the stairs of the tower. Naruto and Arthur both stared after Ned for a while. Then looked to each other. Arthur drew his blade, while Naruto did the same and moved to larger space and started sparring, while Sir Went and Hightower moved to guard the entrance. To the men who arrived with Ned, it was a bizarre sight to say the least. A young man, matching blades with a legendary Kingsguard, both wielding greatswords like they were nothing. The younger man moved more lightly, attacking with speed and moving like he wouldn't leave Prince and Snow and the Kingsguard, not allowing the younger man to leverage his mobility by blocking most avenues of attack, limiting his space. Different methods of fighting, yet both seemed to be matched. Both seemed to be enjoying themselves as well. There seemed to be almost joy as they clashed. Like old friends seeing each other again after a long time or something similar. When they broke their clash, Sir Dane spoke lightly, smiling. A few more years of experience for you, and I would hate be across from you. Mother said you were a bit of a pushover, Naruto japed. The answer was Sir Dane bullying Naruto with his larger size by invading Naruto's defense, pushing back the younger man with a statement of I said few more years. Leave the jokes till you're at your best, you still have room to grow. Naruto grunted as he tried to escape Sir Dane's reach and not having any luck with it. When he was almost pushed to the ground, he grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at Sir Dane's face, finally getting him to back off while the Kingsguard was dodging the small cloud of sand. What was that? Seemed pretty desperate. Sir Dane poked fun. Shut up. Mean old man. Naruto needled back. Old? Old. I'll show you old. Sir Dane attacked again. The Kingsguards shook their heads in exasperation. The Northmen felt like they were having a strange dream. Maybe the heat was making them see things. The sparring continued for a while until Ned came back walking down the stairs. He looked shocked and unsettled. William Dustin was the first to voice the unasked question. Ned, how is Lyanna? Was Naruto telling the truth? Does she have to stay here? Ned turned to the men who came with him, still shaken. Yes, she can't be moved, she needs rest. Ned then turned to Sir Dane and Naruto. She said she wants to see you both. The man in question nodded and hurried towards the tower, disappearing inside. My lord, Howland Reed began. You look like you've seen a ghost. Is there something wrong? Ned was silent. He opened his mouth momentarily, then closed it, opened again and closed again. Then he seemed to gather his thoughts. Yes, there is something wrong. We can't do anything about it. I need all of you to vow everything that happens here, remains here, none can know. Ned peered at his comrades. Said comrades weighed his words, then one by one knelt, with their heads bowed. Thank you, my friends. Now get up, no kneeling, not here. Ned spoke, a bit of emotion creeping into his voice. Kurama, flame hair of Clan Uzumaki. 400 years is a long time. Even longer when you are on the run. 400 years before Robert Baratheon's rebellion in Westeros. Before the Targaryens landed in Westeros and began conquering, there were cities in the Far East that dwarfed the cities of the men of the West. Their splendor put all others to shame. Yi-Ti, first created by the first emperor, God on earth. The begotten son of the maiden maid of light and the lion of night. He and his 100 wives created the great empire of Dawn during the 10,000 years of his reign. And after God on earth rose to the stars, his heirs drove the greatest empire ever built into the ground. From the ashes of that empire came the golden empire of Yi-Ti. The history and rule of the Yi-Ti has been tumultuous at best, chaotic at its worst. The empire itself is built similar to the current Westeros. Multiple kingdoms reigned by a local family, and the whole empire is ruled by a single person. Around 100 BC, the islands of Leng broke free of Yi-Ti and installed their own empress to rule. During this clan, Uzumaki, a bastard line originally formed by the bastard children of the emperors, took this as their chance to escape to the west. It took a few years for Yi-Ti to remember they had left their bastards on the Leng Islands, more specifically the island of whirlpools. Naturally, emperors who claim they are descended from gods and are worshipped themselves don't wish for anyone to upset that rule. So, they sent their assassins to track down the Uzumaki. And so, began the greatest game of hide and seek the world never know. Except in this game, if you are found, you either kill or be killed. After 200 years, even the assassins started to wise up to the Uzumaki's methods of madness after a multitude of failed assassinations and loss of multiple assassins. The Uzumaki would track down great fighters, secure their line and fighting ways to strengthen their own. So, the assassins started doing the same. The assassinations didn't stop, but they became less frequent. The assassins would have children train them to adulthood and then send them to study more, after which the parent would attack the Uzumaki with the plans they'd had years to perfect. There were 9 leaders of the Uzumaki when they escaped. There was a clan of assassins for each leader and their line. Some lines of the Uzumaki had already been lost, but so had some of the assassin clans. The assassins had orders to return upon their success and not before. The problem with these sorts of missions is that while the assassins were bred to fight and always be loyal, even to an empire they'd never even seen, the rulers of the empire didn't have that same breeding. 100 years ago the first assassin clan returned to Yi victorious. 400 years ago they were promised untold riches and positions at court for their sacrifice and service. The emperor at this time promptly had the whole clan put to the blade. Kushina Uzumaki was the daughter to Mito of clan Uzumaki and the first sword of Bravos, who happened to be the best swordsman at the time. She had inherited the blood-red hair of her line. After learning all her father had to teach, Kushina had gone to Westeros in order to get the line of the greatest warrior she could find. During her travels she met Lord Rickard Stark and impressed him with her abilities in combat. The man had made her an offer. If she helped protect the Stark family, he would protect her politically and give her a permanent place to stay. She had agreed. She was still young, under 20 years old, and she wasn't in a hurry to have children. For a year that had held true. Then she'd seen him. Annoying and stoic, standing there in his armor, his blonde hair messy, wielding a greatsword with one hand and another smaller blade in the other. Attorney, a small one. But this man. They'd crossed blades in the melee and he'd beaten her. At night while others celebrated, drank and ate, they sparred under the moonlight. Soon they discarded their blades and clothes and did as youth are known to do. They departed as friends and lovers. 9 months later Naruto of clan Uzumaki, son to Kushina of clan Uzumaki, came into this world, blonde hair of his father and all. And the fool of a father was bound by oaths of service. The assassins had yet to find Kushina or her new son. She was made personal guard to Rickard Stark's newborn daughter Lyanna Stark. The years of her influence did not help reign in Lyanna's wolf's blood. Naruto and Lyanna were raised constantly near each other. As Naruto's training began, Lyanna would be there watching as the young boy was taught to control and master his body, cheering the boy on. They did most things together, including lessons in running a household, and even suffered out an outbreak of red spots in the same room. When Naruto was 15, a year before the tourney of Harrenhal, Kushina contracted red spots. To children under the age of 10 the disease is not dangerous, to adult however the disease is quite deadly. As it was with Kushina. After Kushina's death, Naruto used his mourning period in order to build a grand funeral pyre. He cut the trees, he carried them and built the pyre. Only people allowed to help were Lyanna and Rickard Stark and help they did. As he lit the flames with the Stark family watching in silence, he finally cried. He curled into a ball on the ground and wailed like a baby. Lyanna comforted her friend until the pyre had burned to the end. Then the young man stood, walked before Rickard Stark, knelt and asked to take his mother's position as Lyanna's personal guard. He was given the position. And guard his best friend he did. With zeal. When she insisted on riding a horse through the woods, there was Naruto right after her. When she wanted to learn to use the sword in secret, Naruto showed her the stances of the water dance he'd learned from his mother. When she wanted to try on armor, Naruto had procured a suit of armor for her. When, at Harrenhal, she insisted on teaching a lesson to uppity squires by herself, he painted a laughing tree on her shield. He also almost killed Rhaegar Targaryen when the prince found out about the Mystery Knight's true identity, but was stopped by Lyanna. He never could refuse her anything. He felt like killing the prince a second time when he declared Lyanna his queen of love and beauty. A year later, he had been commanded to other duties by Rickard when Lyanna was captured. Naruto's opinion was to ride south and tear Rhaegar's head from his shoulders and present it to the king. Instead Brandon had ridden south to demand the return of his sister and was captured. Rickard ordered for Naruto to remain at Winterfell and protect Benjen as he rode south. Then the war began and Naruto could truly put everything he had learned from his mother to use. When he shut his eyes, he saw the Targaryen loyalists he had butchered during the fights. His mother had told him it was natural and it would lessen as he would come to terms with the things he'd done. When Robert the Demon of the Trident Baratheon finally felled Prince Rhaegar at the Trident, he was busy fighting Barristan the Bold. He came out on top, but it was the most tiring thing he had done, and Barristan already had been fighting multitude of opponents by then. He hadn't killed Barristan, only wounded the man. After the battle Ned had commanded Naruto to find Lyanna and bring her back. He didn't hesitate. He was tired, but he could eat on the road. Through whispers and rumors, he found her at the tower. He also found 3 Kingsguards. Sir Dane. Blonde hair. It was like a bad joke to him. They clashed. And after a moment Sir Dane asked if Naruto's mother was Kushina of Clan Uzumaki. The resounding yes put a stop to things. Neither Sir Dane nor Naruto wanted to be kinslayer. Naruto pleaded to see his friend in the tower. He even offered to strip his armor and weapons. The king's guard had convened for a while, then let him in without his weapons. What Naruto saw, he was not prepared for. When Lyanna saw Naruto come in she burst out crying, hiding her face. The clearly pregnant woman was a shocking sight. Naruto thought he might find her defiled. She was fine, no bruises or signs of her hurt. Naruto hurried to her side, took her hand, thanked his gods and Lyanna's gods that she was safe. When she heard him thankful that she was safe, Lyanna turned to Naruto. She explained she was afraid he was disappointed in her. He in turn assured her that she could never disappoint him. He then asked if the child would be named after him. He got a tearful laugh and a slap as his answer. He made sure Lyanna and the baby were safe and told her he would guard her in Rieger's stead with the king's guard. None would hurt them. He insisted she rest and have the wet nurse call them if she needed anything. Naruto and the king's guard all guarded the tower while having spars during the day. At the night Naruto insisted on sleeping next to Lyanna's bed on the floor. Lyanna in turn insisted on holding his hand during the night. Naruto never refused anything to Lyanna. So, with a still a painful shoulder from the awkward position, he sat on the rock gazing into the distance. Then he spotted them and groaned. Ned was here. Catelyn Stark Pov. Lady Catelyn Stark, originally Tully, did not like Sir Naruto. The man did guard her children with great vigor. He also trained her son. For that she was grateful. But the attention and interest showed her husband's bastard was disturbing. The man had been knighted by King Robert at the end of the war for his role in guarding Ned's life and credited in being the first to saving Lady Lyanna. Even if Lyanna had been hurt by Rhaegar Targaryen and made it near impossible for her to give birth according to the Mesters, Robert still held a soft spot for the woman. The man had been knighted so he should know better than to focus on a bastard of all things. The man knew honor of service and the meaning of it. He'd even defended traitors for doing their duty. So, it was strange. When he'd taught the boy to climb the towers of Winterfell, she'd secretly held hope it was so that the boy could fall. But no. Every morning they began the day by climbing the old tower. After that they always ate together. After which they trained. She was glad she didn't allow her son to climb with them. It would do no good if the heir of Winterfell fell from the tower. Lady Lyanna also taught the boy, which she found shocking. Even more shocking was when she at one point taught the boy how to wield a blade. Robb was taught how to rule, but Lyanna seemed to be giving the boy similar lessons. Catelyn had tried to impress upon Lyanna and Sir Naruto that their behavior was not proper. Lyanna had given her a look she thinks she once saw on her uncle Bryndon's face when he stepped into a cow pie by accident. Sir Naruto had just stared at her silently with a blank face until she'd left. She had gone to her husband to get it fixed. Ned vaguely explained he would not try and command Sir Naruto to leave the boy on his own. Sir Naruto seemed to have almost taken the boy as his own. He still always escorted Lady Lyanna, but when the boy was upset or could not do something, he would immediately speak with a low voice to his lady, who would always consent and allow him to aid the boy. When the boy had gotten ill, Sir Naruto had publicly in a rather loud voice requested permission from his lady to stay at the boy's side till he got better. Lyanna had agreed and told him she would not prevent him from doing his duty to her and would accompany him in caring for the boy. Neither had left the room till the fever had subsided. It seems the northern lords revered both of them to some extent, as some of them sent things to aid them in their endeavor of healing the boy. Furs to keep the boy warm. Herbs and liquids for medicine. Lyanna truly seemed to love family and not cared for propriety. She didn't care that the boy was only a bastard. When she had asked why that was, she'd looked thoughtful for a moment then replied. The boy reminded of her brother and she never could hate any of her brothers. Lyanna was clearly broken from whatever Rhaegar had done to her. As the boy grew, she started to hear more and more whispers and rumors saying that Lyanna would never marry and what a shame it would be. Catelyn already knew no one would wish to be with someone whose honor had been stained so. No respectable man from the south would take her, maybe some minor lord of the north would take her from their hands. She'd take Sir Naruto with her and she wouldn't have to worry about the bastard getting ideas above his lot in life. That would happen in the south. But not here. Not in the north. Ned would not hear of it. Good thing Sansa understood the true ways of a lady despite Lyanna. She understood the Septa's lessons and knew the prayers to the Seven and understood the proper place for a bastard. Catelyn requested Ned get a Septa brought to the north and even a Sept built since Catelyn had never felt welcomed in the north, especially in front of the Weirwoods. They seemed to be always judging her with their bleeding eyes. She never understood how Sir Naruto didn't seem to have the same problem despite worshipping his strange gods from the east. He also seemed to be more accepted among the Weirwoods, standing in front of them almost reverently, holding quiet conversations with Lady Lyanna. The Greyjoy rebellion had come 6 years after Robert's rule began. Ned and Sir Naruto had sailed to the Iron Islands with the king and defeated the Greyjoys. He also brought back the only remaining son of Balin Greyjoy. Also, according to rumor, Naruto had fought Euron Greyjoy and taken the man's eye during their confrontation, with the Greyjoy escaping. There had also been a mysterious assassin seemingly after King Robert's life who Naruto had killed. When Arya was born the same year, she had been so sure they would have another perfect daughter. Ned had stripped her of those sorts of thoughts when she had wondered why Lady Lyanna had given a wolfish grin when she made eye contact with the newborn. He'd explained that Lyanna as well as him could see the wolf's blood was present in the girl with nothing but the eyes alone. And if the stories were to be believed, history had repeated and a woman capable of wielding a blade was having a very wild influence on a daughter of a Lord Stark. Ned didn't seem to mind. He had just smiled when Catelyn had brought it up. That was definitely not good. Even worse, a few years later Arya seemed to be following the bastard around like a pup anytime Catelyn wasn't making sure Arya was at her lessons. When she had complained to Sir Naruto, he had simply nodded thoughtfully. Then she could no longer find Sir Naruto, Lady Lyanna, the bastard or Arya when Sir Naruto seemed to be training the bastard. That was even more worrying. After Theon Greyjoy had been brought to Winterfell, the future Lord Greyjoy had done his best to show the bastard his place, which Catelyn was grateful for. When words were not enough, the young lordling had tried to teach with his fists. The bastard had the nerve to strike back. Naturally, young Greyjoy had taken a blade to teach the bastard his place. Which was only right. He was a trueborn son of a lord no matter the name. But before he could teach the bastard his lesson, Sir Naruto had taken the blade away and slapped the young man hard enough to spill blood. Catelyn had tried to stop the injustice, but Sir Naruto had not listened to her words. He had growled to the poor young lord that if he ever dared to threaten or raise a hand against anyone with Stark blood or any of the servants he would come and take the offending hand away and feed it to the young man. The young man had tried to explain to the brute of a knight that this is not how things were done. Naruto didn't seem to understand and slapped him again and told the boy that he wasn't a lordling here, he was a hostage. Catelyn had gone to Ned to tell of this injustice. Ned had listened calmly, then summoned Sir Naruto and told him that Greyjoy wasn't to be hurt. Sir Naruto, outrageously, had told Ned that in that case he would be moving Lady Lyanna and, if need, the bastard to Greywater Watch if Ned insisted or surrendering the rule of Winterfell to the Greyjoy. Ned had gone so red Catelyn was scared he would catch fire and ordered her to leave the two men alone. As the door closed, she could hear muffled shouting from her lord husband Solar. When they emerged later Ned informed her that young Theon would not be allowed near Jon anymore. Ned had then put Robb and Theon mainly into training under Sir Roderick Castle. A year after the Greyjoy rebellion, Bran was born. Finally, the Stark line had been secured. Just like in the old texts. 2 sons at least. The bastard had started to grow faster than Robb. He was taller, this wasn't good. If something wasn't done soon the lords of the north would start whispering that the bastard was more of a Stark than her own son. The bastard had started to learn the strange language Lady Lyanna and Sir Naruto spoke sometimes. They would speak to the boy in small conversations and sometimes laugh. Sometimes Sir Naruto and the bastard would talk and glance at her and the people around. Sometimes they would laugh. She was sure the bastard was plotting something. It would have been better if Ned had them leave. A few years later her sister had her first son. Named him Robert Arryn. According to the letters he looked just like his father. So, the boy was going to be noble and strong like Lord Jon Arryn then. Sir Naruto had also started teaching the bastard some barbaric methods of fighting, sometimes they wouldn't even use weapons, simply their fists and legs. Not even wearing shirts. The bastard was growing up too fast. His body was becoming sinful. Soon he'd start attempting to spread his seed. He might even try to take her to bed by force. Bend her to his will with his strong body from hours of training. Grab her supple body with his strong hands and use his big muscles to make her his. Still better her than Sansa or even worse, Arya. He knew when his husband brought back the bastard that he would grow up big and strong like her husband and probably beautiful as well. Ned would never have betrayed her for an ugly woman. All bastards were sinful. She hoped Ned never left her with him. She had no doubt he would take her and she wouldn't be able to fight him. She had also noticed Lady Lyanna would linger her gaze on Sir Naruto quite long when he would teach the bastard the barbaric ways. If she weren't married, she might as well. The man was strong and the way the sweat would drip from him was very sinful. But she was a proper lady. Not a lady of the north. Proper ladies like her had no thoughts of betraying their husband by some night. Even if they looked like you could tenderize meat on their stomach and the servants had began whispering Sir Naruto was sneaking off from the watchful eye of his lady to be with a secret lover. Every time she thought of him or the bastard, she would find herself needing the touch of her lord husband. That's how Rickon was born a little while later. Theon Greyjoy had started going to the brothel in Wintertown, most likely to de-stress from his position as a hostage. More than once Naruto had dragged him back from there because Ned asked him to. She was so glad Rob didn't go with him. It would be no good for her firstborn son to act like that. She had no doubt the bastard was secretly going to the brothel or forcing the servants to tend to his sinful wants. She had already started to convince her husband to send the bastard to the wall, but didn't seem to be making much headway. Even little Bran had started to follow the bastard around, especially in the mornings. They still climbed the damn towers, and now they were teaching her baby. She had tried to get him to stop, but he still kept doing it. Sir Naruto wasn't any help either as he kept encouraging the climbing. Only thing she was grateful for was the harness he had made that was attached to a rope that was attached to the pulley system on the side of the tower. That way someone could stand below the tower and pull on the rope to stop him from falling. The problem however was that it was only on a single tower. Not the most dangerous one Bran liked to climb. Her little Sansa was still the perfect lady. She would make a fine wife for some High Lord one day, maybe even the prince. That was if the bastard kept to himself. To be continued. Winterfell, 296 AC. In a courtyard in Winterfell a loud thud. And a groan could be heard. A black-haired boy, nearly a young man, without his shirt laid away from a standing blonde man who wasn't wearing his shirt either. Naruto could only sigh a little. John, 3 and 10 years, picked himself up again and rushed him. This time he tried to tackle Naruto's midriff. Tried as in Naruto bent down, hooked his right arm in front of John's chest, and grabbed the back of John's trousers with his left. Then as he was pushed backwards, he slightly crouched and lifted John over him, slamming him into the mud on his back and sending the air out of him. John coughed and heaved as he tried to get his lungs to work from the slam he suffered. Naruto had taught him that when slammed, the diaphragm can go into momentary shock and is unable to regulate breathing. Now John was focusing with all his thoughts on breathing, more specifically, sucking in air. But sucking air when you feel like you don't have lungs is hard, it feels like they're momentarily missing, and your mind is panicking. The only solution is focusing on breathing. As he was doing that Naruto had already straightened out and was standing quite relaxed next to John. Then John inhaled air greedily, almost making a sound similar to a donkey braying. Then a loud exhale and lots of coughing. Naruto was in no hurry and waited patiently as John turned to lay on his side still coughing. When John finally got his breathing under control, he let out a loud groan and spat mucus on the ground next to him. "Are you ready to learn?" Naruto nudged John with his foot. Another groan and go eat a goat's bullocks was the reply. "No, I don't think I will," Naruto stated, then grabbed John's ankle and started dragging him across the yard towards the boy's mother, who was watching with a bit of worry in her eyes. Naruto just grinned when John started kicking him with the other leg. Naruto let go, allowing John to get up. "You listening to me now, boy? As soon as your balls started dropping you've been full of piss and vinegar. I don't mind kicking you around the yard, but I'm hoping on actually teaching you something other than brawling today. Now, don't get me wrong. A good brawl on a battlefield is all well and good, as long as nobody interferes. But that's almost never the case. I also know you can be stubborn as a mule, so I know I might need to beat the information into your head." John glared but nodded his head. Naruto got into a position with his right foot behind his left and a bit to the side, bent his knees a bit and raised his fists next to his head and indicated for John to copy him, which he did as best he could. Naruto then walked around John fixing his position, widening his feet just a bit so that he could stand firmly and resist pushing the cane from around him. He also fixed the positions of his fists and elbows, packing them nearer his head. After he was done, he got in front of John again and showed how to move. The movement came from the balls of the feet, with small movement he could sway from side to side, and little pushes with them left the legs mostly in the same stance left him on firm ground, ready to react. Naruto had him moving like that for the whole day. He remembered doing similar training with Lady Lyanna when she had taught him water dancing. But where water dancing is being light on the feet and nearly always in motion like water flowing, this was like being a rock that was on floating on the water, turning and dodging, glancing off blows. He knew Naruto wasn't being in any way serious yet. He stood in a similar position and threw some punches his way that he had to dodge or redirect as best he could. Jabs is what he called them. He knew the man was holding back because he remembered what happened to Theon last time Naruto dragged him back from Wintertown. The older boy was drunk, called Lady Lyanna a bad word, claimed he had taken her to bed multiple times, and tried to fight Naruto. Naruto had performed one of those jabs on Theon's face. It had sounded similar to the sound when a butcher tenderizes meat and Theon had passed out with a bloody nose. John hadn't even clearly seen Naruto's hand moving forward, he'd just seen Naruto turn his upper body and putting his left leg forward and the sound happening. Lady Catelyn had tried to yell at him, but father had stopped her, claiming if Naruto hadn't punished the boy, he would have. Naruto was more of a father to him than his own father. He didn't yell, at least at him. He always had time. When he was little, John could remember Naruto hugging him after a bad dream. Anytime John wondered out loud if his mother loved him, Naruto was there to tell him to never doubt such things. Flashback equals. John, no matter what anyone ever says, especially Lady Catelyn or Theon, your mother loves you more than anything in this world. I don't know if the gods allow those who have passed to view us, but I'd love to see them try and stop your mother from doing anything. If she could be here with you telling that you are the one she loves most in this world, she would. That's why when she first let me carry you, she told me I was to never let you think she didn't love you and that you are the one thing I can't allow be hurt. And never doubt that. Ever. And if you don't believe that, believe this. No matter the blood, I would be proud to call you son. Flashback, end equals. John idolized the man. He didn't fight like anyone else. He didn't care about honor or being cheap. He cared about survival. When John first watched Naruto training the guards, the first lesson he learned was balls are a weak point, use it. John had used that lesson more than once against Theon when the older boy had tried to abuse him. Lady Lyanna was someone he looked up to as well. She always went with Naruto everywhere. She told him stories of when she and Naruto were young. It made him feel better in knowing that Naruto was human. He still always grinned when he remembered the story of when Naruto's mother had taught them to ride horses. Apparently, Naruto could not get the horse under control in any way and had rode around Wintertown twice by the horse, just hanging on for dear life. Best part, Naruto was most times present during the telling of the story and would get his red a hot coal. It was one of the few times you could see him embarrassed. She was also that spent time with him when Naruto and father went to deal with the Greyjoy rebellion. He was sad and scared that neither would come back. He'd confessed his worries to Lady Lyanna and that night she'd sat at his bedside, told him stories of their youth and then hummed a song to him in a way that had put him to sleep. That night he'd secretly imagined that she was his mother and Naruto was his father. For one night, he felt truly at peace. John was panting when they finally stopped. Naruto clapped him on the back and told him to go light the fire to the steam room they had prepared this morning. It was one of the things Naruto had built. The guards loved it after a cold day. The lit fire heated stones on a surface above it and the smoke was funneled out through a pipe. The furnace heated two sides, male and female, keeping anything untowards from happening. Once heated, you simply threw snow or water on the stones and steam was created. As the steam filled the room, it warmed the whole body. Also next to the placing for the heated rocks was a big metal vat where water was warmed. The northern lords that had visited had fallen in love with the room and soon almost every keep had one being built. Not every keep was blessed with having warm spring under them after all. Even Wintertown had one building with a big steam room simply dedicated to it. Incidentally, sicknesses had decreased some with each steam room built and used. But after an entire day of training, it felt like heaven to get into the steam room and simply relax. John rushed from the courtyard to light the fire, leaving Naruto and Lady Lyanna behind. Naruto turned to Lyanna and walked towards her and the shirt laying on the railing in front of her. Lyanna gave him a soft smile, grabbed the shirt before he could reach it, holding tea behind her back. Naruto only raised his eyebrow in question and climbed over the railing to stand in front of her. Lyanna grinned impishly up at him. He held out his hand and she shook her head, grin still in place. Naruto tried to grab the shirt around her, but had no luck as she held it away from him. "My lady, please," Naruto stated. "Please what?" Lyanna grinned. "My lady, may I please have my shirt back? It is quite cold out here now that I'm not training," Naruto asked her with a smile. Lyanna hummed then spoke, "This exchange is not fair. I need something in return," she fluttered her eyes teasingly. Naruto just stared at her with hooded eyes, glanced around to make no one was paying any attention, then nudged her to a darkened corner. He dipped his head down and kissed the spot where her jaw and ear meet and whispered in her ear, "Please, my lady, I will endeavor of performing in a suitable way tonight in exchange for this great favor." Lyanna turned her face to him, gave him a quick peck, agreed. "Now let's go see that John doesn't burn himself." Naruto nodded and pulled the shirt on over his head. He grabbed his knife and longsword from a table nearby and stripped them around his waist. He then bent his arm and held it to Lady Lyanna, who hooked her hand around it. "Where to, my lady?" Naruto asked, acting all serious and knightly. "Towards the steam room, good sir," Lyanna smiled lightly. They didn't rush, they enjoyed the slow, almost casual walk. They even took detour near Arya's lesson. If the girl happened to spot and follow them, it would be absolutely incidental. As it happened, Arya did escape her lesson and follow them, jumping on Naruto's back, hanging of his neck, while asking them about what Naruto taught John today. Lyanna's answer of rolling in the mud brought about a lot of grumbling about it not being fair. Arya then began to pester Naruto about stories from the Greyjoy rebellion and how he took Urin's eye. Naruto annoyed her and just told her she wasn't old enough for those kinds of stories. The little wolf tried to bite the back of Naruto's neck. Lyanna took Arya from Naruto's back, placing Arya on her hip as she carried the smaller Stark, making Arya stop and stated only she was allowed to bite Naruto's neck. Arya was confused about why Lyanna would bite Naruto, but shrugged and told her to bite him. Lyanna assured she would later. Naruto only got a playful glint in his eye and glanced to Lyanna. A similar glint was in her eye. They finally made it to the steam room, guards standing by the entrance. John came out and told them that it was ready. Naruto just told him go and enjoy himself and to remember stretching. John entered the male side. Naruto told Arya to run along to her lesson. She said she would, but he knew she was more likely to go to the smithy or her father's solar. As Arya ran off, Lyanna laughed lightly and entered the female side. For a moment Naruto entertained the idea of following Lyanna, but then entered the male side. North never was one for propriety, so seeing another person naked wasn't that strange. Still it was a good idea to give people their bathing piece. John was already laying down on one of the long top row benches in the steam-filled room. The boy seemed to almost be dozing off. Naruto gave a chuckle through some water on the stone, bringing forth a great hiss and a cloud of steam. John only seemed to relax more. Naruto climbed on the top row himself and leaned back, bringing his arm hand in front of him and stretching. John, tomorrow we'll do throwing knives. So, remember to dress warm, we might not be moving around a lot. John only groaned long in a non-committal way, making Naruto laugh. Yeah, me too little John, me too. He laid back and closed his eyes. That evening they went to the Great Hall to get some food. The whole Stark family, along with Theon, was gathered there. During feasts the family sat the high table, but now they just sat at the long table, so Lyanna, John and Naruto joined them for dining. John sat next to Arya, Lyanna sat across from John, next to Bran, and Naruto sat next to Lyanna. It was a quiet affair, with only Arya rowdy, but even that was muted after Naruto started telling her stories from Essos. Lady Catelyn tried to glare at John, but when Naruto started to surreptitiously glancing at her with a glare of his own, she quickly stopped. After the eating was done, Lord Eddard ushered the children to bed. Naruto told John to go as well. Catelyn decided to retire as well. Naruto and Lyanna joined Ned for a drink in his solar and a small bit of reminiscing their youth. Naruto escorted Lyanna to her rooms. At the door she leaned towards Naruto and simply whispered an hour. Don't be later seen. Naruto simply nodded solemnly. Lyanna grinned and went in. Naruto calmly walked back to his room and stripped his sword and knife and changed into lighter, darker clothing. An hour later Naruto was led into Lyanna's room. To be continued. Winterfell, 296 AC. Lyanna fell panting to lay on top of Naruto. His hands moved upwards from her outer thighs, massaging her body. Up across her bottom, to her lower back, to the middle of her back, to her shoulder blades. She groaned in satisfaction, then his touch changed light, almost ticklish as he soothed her back. She absently gave kisses light as a feather on his neck in turn. It felt nice to just cool down in the night air. But the fire going it in the corner of the room, her lover's body heat below her, it felt just perfect for a moment. Then the sweat did its job and started to cool her skin, and a shiver went through her body. She felt Naruto covering them both in furs, trapping their heat. She moved a bit down so she could lay her head on the crook of his neck. She breathed in deeply, taking in one of the smells she loved, Naruto's sweat and musk. When she was 6 and 10, she went along with a romantic idea of going with Prince Rhaegar to get married in the south. She hated the idea of marrying Robert Baratheon since she met him, so when an older prince of the realm came and crowned her the queen of love and beauty over his own wife, she was rather taken. 7 years older he was. And she was taken in by the flowery words and songs sung along with the man's harp. It was weird, she regretted marrying and laying with Rhaegar, but she never regretted birth of Jon. After she was confirmed as pregnant, Rhaegar was overjoyed. But he was overjoyed about some vague prophecy coming true. Not the fact they had created their child, no, he wanted the prince who was promised. That's when it hit her first time. He wanted her for her blood, not because he loved her. She wondered if the prophecy spoke of goats birthing the prince instead of ice and fire together, would he have had the biggest harem of goats the world had ever seen. She had left her family and her best friend behind because of this man, and now she was stuck. Then the news came that her father and oldest brother Brandon were dead. The truth finally came out. Rhaegar had told her that he had already agreed with her father. He'd shown her the letters. There should have been no issue of them going south. She'd cried then, she'd wailed like Naruto did when he lost his mother. She wanted Naruto there. He always made things better. He took care of her. He always went along with her dumb plans when she didn't want to do her duty. He protected her. Held her secrets. She thought he would be so disappointed in her. He taught her to fight. She should have realized what Rhaegar was. She should have bitten and scratched the fucker till the prince, known for his beauty, resembled a piece of tenderized meat. Laying in that tower waiting for her son to be born. Sir Dane was nice, he reminded her of Naruto. They both had that same form of loyalty in them. Unfortunately, it was for the child in her, rather than her. She was nearing the end of her pregnancy. She didn't know how she was going to do this by herself. Then Naruto walked in through the door. Gods, he looked different. He seemed to have grown into even more of a man while they were separated. She hid her face from him. She felt dirty, sullied. But then Naruto was next to her, making sure she was safe. Why couldn't he have been the child's father? With his bad jokes and caring nature reserved for her and Benjin. She didn't want to let go of him. She commanded her best friend to stay by her side during the night. Which he did, the dummy. During the day when he wasn't guarding the outside of the tower, he sat next to her on her bed and they remembered their youth together. The foolish things and trouble they'd done. During the first day she felt like she had her strength back. She felt like she could battle dragons and wrestle giants again. Then Ned came. Panicking, the poor fool. He spoke of her marrying Robert. She, in no certain terms, told him that she was going to have this baby soon and she wouldn't be marrying Robert. She would go back home to the north. And that would be it. If Ned loved Robert so much, he could damn well marry the fucker himself. There would be nothing Ned could do about it. He could either do as Lyanna wanted or she'd have Naruto kill every man here. Then she'd have him kill Robert too and if need be every single lord who she saw as a threat. Ned thought Naruto was resolute when he wanted to see her saved. He'd not seen him when Lyanna gave a command, a real command. Naruto would perhaps be damaged by doing such a thing to his comrades, but he would do it if it protected Lyanna and her child. Let them come with gods themselves at their side. Naruto would drown the drowned god. He'd slay the warrior. He'd tear the head from the Lion of Night. He'd punch the Lord of Light till he was nothing but embers. Ned had finally understood what he was dealing with. He had thought he commanded Naruto. No, Naruto was hers, always hers. If she said jump, he was already in the air. If she said protect, lightning from the sky would be cut down. When John came to this world screaming and wailing, Naruto was there holding her hand. He was also the first man to hold John. He looked at her John with warm eyes. Earlier Naruto had made a joke about naming John. Out of interest she had asked what he would have named John. Setsuro, he told her, Snow Wolf. Her little Setsuro. Her little wolf from the north. Al and Rita was tasked with returning with John and Wila to the north, where Ned agreed he would be given his son at an inn when returning to Winterfell. After a while for rest they'd ridden north. The King's guards took oaths to not attack Robert. Grand Maester Picel claimed Lyanna could not have any more children because of the disastrous things done to her, with testimony from 2 other Maesters to back him up. She wasn't complaining. They also knighted Naruto after a fair deal of grumbling from him. Naruto Walking Armory of Clan Uzumaki. What a ridiculous nickname. Apparently, he earned the name from an ambush. He was unarmed when the ambush began in the dead of night. He was up with Ned making plans for the next day when they'd rushed in. Ned had ice with him. Naruto had grabbed a stool he was sitting on. He'd bashed in the head of the first man to come at him. From that man he'd pilfered a knife, which was thrown into the neck of a man trying to creep on Ned. The next man to attack him got a candlestick rammed through their eye, from him he'd gotten an axe. With the axe he'd killed 3 men and stolen a short sword from one of them. Then he became a whirlwind of blood and body parts. These weapons were from levies unfortunately, so they didn't last long and broke rather easily, being cheap. Any weapon that broke was quickly replaced with another. When the camp was finally roused and came to aid Ned and Naruto. Naruto was, if the story is to be believed, covered from head to toe in gore, swinging a battle axe with one hand and a spear with the other. Surrounding him were a rather worrying number of bodies. Apparently, the Bolton sentries had fallen asleep. Naruto had still been in his blood frenzy and wanted to make an example of Roose Bolton by beheading the man and parading his head around their camp on a stick as a lesson in what happens to incompetent leaders. Ned had decided against it and managed to calm him down. This part of Lyanna's and Naruto relationship only came after a few years back in the north. When they weren't watching over John, they were having fun like they used to. Riding with horses, training in water dancing, shooting bows. She had to take the first step. When Naruto had helped his Ein build the steam room, she had helped him. A lot of people were skeptical in the beginning, but that just gave her the chance to go into the steam room before guards were deemed necessary. As in go with Naruto. By themselves. In the dead of night. It was different with Naruto. No lies or deception. Just a man and a woman. They like to do it in multiple ways, and she learned that running with someone you love can be much better than lovemaking with someone you're not sure of. Naruto acted in her stead and gave her son all the love she couldn't. She still held the one night during the Greyjoy rebellion she could act as a mother to John near her heart. After he'd fallen asleep, she'd stayed there, watching her son's face as he slept. And whispering that his real father, the one that raised him, would be safe and return to them, not because she had commanded so, but because he'd promised he would. And he'd kept that promise. Lyanna was starting to doze off. Naruto hated he would have to leave and sneak back to his own room. He felt most comfortable here, with her. But it wouldn't do for a lady of House Stark to be seen with a knight. If for nothing else, then for the fact that if word got to Robert somehow, the fat prick would do something stupid. When Lyanna first met Robert, Naruto was by her side. After the first few sentences, Naruto was quite sure that if this marriage came to be, he'd get the order to gut the bastard before their wedding night. If anyone asked, he'd never do such a thing. At least in public. In the woods during a hunt or while he was in the privy taking a shit. Most definitely. Lyanna had his heart since they were children. The fact that Lyanna was sometimes curious about kissing and such had nothing to do with it. At least not much. A bit, maybe. She'd even allowed him to have a son. Not through blood. But John was definitely his son. Fuck Rhaegar and his claim to John. John was his boy, not Ned's and not Rhaegar's, his. If the Uchiha clan still came after him, they wouldn't touch John. He wasn't a target. Seems the cycle was broken. Equals flashback equals. Iron Islands, 289 AC, the deck of ship Grief. Naruto, dressed in studded leather armor, cut down another foolhardy young man with his greatsword by taking off their head. Immediately another rushed from his left side and a knife stabbed through their eye for their trouble. Naruto pulled back his knife and used it to redirect the next incoming blow to his left side and skewered the attacker. He turned, drawing the sword from the dead man's stomach and cut a new man in two. The deck of the ship was empty at this point. He wondered if he should just swim to the beach and join Ned in the keep which he and Robert were assaulting. Suddenly his instinct screamed at him and not doubting his crouched down as something cut the air above his head. He turned when crouched turning a full circle with a swing. The attacker immediately got out of range. He too was dressed in black leather armor and a cloth mask, wielding a shorter and thinner blade than Naruto. The attacker pulled away one of his greaves and flashed Naruto a tattoo of a red fan. Naruto just uttered a "Che. I've been waiting for you." Naruto brought his greatsword to point away from his side and spoke, "This one is Naruto of Clan Uzumaki, I salute you Che. May I have your name?" The dark-dressed fighter paused, put his sword away for a moment and took off his mask. The man revealed had raven black hair, red speckled eyes, a rather wide jaw and a severe face. A deep baritone voice came from the man, "This one is Hyugaku of Clan Uchiha. You know why I'm here." I also know how this works. Where is your observer?" The assassin nodded to one of the towers on Pike. In the distance Naruto could see something glinting in the shadow of the room facing them. Naruto nodded in satisfaction. Naruto brought his greatsword slowly to point at Hyugaku, and the hand holding the knife in a reverse hold was brought across the arm to point at Hyugaku. Hyugaku drew his blade from his back and with a flick of his wrist he was holding throwing knives between his fingers. Then they clashed. Hyugaku relied on his speed and hit and run tactics trying to get around the blade, but anytime he tried to go around he was met with the knife. Naruto had to constantly dodge the daggers thrown at him, but he preferred to keeping low and shifting his weight with the greatsword. He even used a dagger on his left hand to stab into the deck of the ship to swing around it in order to not lose any energy in changing direction when chasing the assassin. At one point some little shit hiding on the ship tried to attack him from behind with a greedix while yelling, but Naruto only spun around, cut the man's right eye and focused back on the Uchiha. Their final clash came when Hyugaku didn't manage to redirect one of Naruto's blows and his blade broke. The shock didn't last long as Naruto's knife stabbed into one of Hyugaku's sides. The assassin fell down on his knees coughing blood. Naruto took a few steps back and circled his opponent. Hyugaku grabbed his broken blade. The Shakunin came a rasp from Hyugaku. Naruto was momentarily stunned. "Are you certain?" he questioned. Hyugaku only nodded, then straightened his back and raised his head as Naruto moved behind Hyugaku with his sword at the ready. Hyugaku stared straight at the tower and spoke, "You're the leader now. Explain to them that this is what I wanted." Then Hyugaku stabbed himself with the broken blade in the stomach and gutted himself. As soon as Hyugaku's blade stopped moving, Naruto swung and Hyugaku's head rolled across the deck. Naruto turned to blow out some air and spotted the little shit from earlier, sitting there staring at them with his one remaining eye. Then the bastard realized Naruto had seen him and scrambled from the ship, jumping straight in the sea. Naruto only hummed, then retrieved a piece of cloth which he used to wrap Hyugaku's head in. He looked towards the tower and spoke, "This night, the beach, I'll wait for you." He also grabbed Hyugaku's blade. He moved into a boat, taking care not to let anything happen to the head. He then rowed ashore. The fighting had tapered out. People looking confused as he carried around a bloody bag. When asked who it was, he simply stated an assassin. While the feasting began, Naruto prepared the head by cleaning it and wrapping it in a new clean cloth. He then procured a bottle of wine, took the blade and the head, and went to sit on the beach. As the moon came out, Naruto was joined by another person dressed in black. The person took of their mask, showing similar raven black hair, but his face was less angular than Hyugaku's, with tear grooves next to his nose. He sat next to Naruto, who handed him the wine bottle. They didn't speak anything, simply sat there drinking the wine. After a while Naruto simply stated Naruto, to which the stranger stated Itachi. They continued sitting in silence until Itachi broke it. Thank you, my father was very proud. The fact that he asked you to act as Kashakunin tells me he liked or at least respected you. Your movement was swift and smooth. But to warn you, my younger brother will not understand, he'll come after you. I have already tired of this whole thing. I don't care to come after you. After the Yamada clan was butchered, all the clans have started to doubt their mission. But my father was a traditionalist and wished to at least try. My younger brother is foolish and I have no doubt he'll try. Naruto thought on that for a moment and simply nodded in understanding. Itachi rose to his feet, followed by Naruto. Naruto handed Itachi Fugaku's head and blade. Itachi thanked him and walked away. Naruto went inside to find some chicken for food. Flashback, end equals. Naruto felt Itachi could be trusted. Still this brother of his was to be worried about, but that was a problem for later. Lyanna had fallen asleep already. Naruto slowly inched himself out of her bed and dressed. He took care to pull the furs over her. Then he kissed her forehead and cheek. He listened to the hallway and when he was sure no one was there, he moved through the hallways. Right before made it to his room, he heard someone clearing their throat behind him. Ned was standing there with disapproval written on his face. Naruto simply shrugged. Ned grudgingly shook his head and walked away towards his own rooms, allowing Naruto to get some sleep. Before Naruto went to sleep he made sure the throwing knives were ready for tomorrow. Widerfell, 296 AC. Naruto's POV. Duty. It sometimes seemed the Tullys believed they owned the word. Especially Catelyn Stark, formerly of House Tully. Then again, it's rather easy to speak of duty when doing said duty is doing what is easy or advantageous. Catelyn's duty. Marrying the next Lord Stark and Warden of the North. Catelyn seemed to be under the impression that she should still be carrying the words and faith of House Tully and nothing else. And she wondered Lords of the North didn't seem to like her. Family, duty, honor. Those were the words and she believed that because the North believed in those same things, they also shared the same values. In the South, family was what you showed on the outside to others. In the North it was how you treated your blood and friends in private. It also makes you vulnerable since you don't pretend. Duty. In the South, you follow your lord, no matter the order, and you kill children if necessary. In the North the one to pass judgment swings the blade, never delegating to others in your command. You led from the front or among your kinsmen, never from behind, hiding from the fight. It also put the lords in danger. Honor. In the South, what people see is your honor. In the North honor is what you can live with. If you could live with stabbing someone in the back, you retained your personal honor. But it also leads to each and every person having their own version of honor and each judging the others based on their own beliefs. Jon was in Catelyn's blood, yet he was her children's blood and she mistreated the boy when she could. She did her duty of pushing out children, but she didn't want to take any part in northern traditions and calming the lords. She felt her honor had personally been insulted and the insult was done by newborn and she took the warning beware the bastard a bit too seriously. She didn't seem to realize the old gods had their own rules on children out of wedlock. Every time Naruto saw Catelyn in the Godswood, she looked out of place and uncomfortable. He didn't know if she could hear the whispers or not, but if she did, they didn't seem to be very nice toward her. To Naruto, they felt curious and empathic these days. Naruto first heard the whispers after his mother passed. Back then were almost singular and they insisted a lot more. They spoke to him, telling him to carry out his mother's duty. So, it became his duty as well. But Lyanna was still his best friend and it was hard to separate the affection he felt for his sort of sister and the duty he felt in her service. He always had a soft spot Lyanna. She was innocent and didn't seem to understand the world entirely. Sometimes he felt like a babysitter or an older brother. It felt like he was two people in a single body. The servant and the warrior originating in the east. It was hard to keep his head straight. He sometimes felt he was only watching from a window in on what was happening. His legs moved, he spoke, and the voice was his, but sometimes it felt as though the words were not his. Like his mind was in a fog. After Ned came back and told what happened to Rickard, the rage he felt lifted the fog. He could still swear he heard a beast's roar from within and a scream as the rage overtook him. He finally felt like himself again, like the warrior from the east. And his blood was boiling. It felt like he needed to rip and tear. Benjen later told him that in that moment he looked like someone else entirely. He had trained and guarded him by Rickard's orders and for a moment he looked like a stranger. For Naruto the battles were a release of sort. He felt as though he'd found something he thought had burned with his mother. He felt the blades in his hand more firmly than in a long time, felt his strength increasing or returning. He indulged in the battles, maybe even a little too much. The idea of having the Kingsguard vowing to not fight against Robert had somehow worked out. It was a mix of Ned and surprisingly Jon Arryn that saved their lives. And if anyone asked, he did not bribe a whore to whisper into Pucel's ear about how Lyanna wasn't suitable on the throne. Naruto would protect his friend and her son freely, but he was damned if he had to live in city that smelled of pig shit. And when Pucel claimed Lyanna's body was broken by Rieger, Robert seemed disappointed. Then again, during the whole war Robert's bed didn't seem to be empty on a single night. He kept telling they would get Lyanna back, that Baratheon and Stark would be joined, and that Ned and Robert would finally be brothers. Sometimes Naruto amusedly wondered if Robert wasn't, not necessarily a pillow biter, but in love with Ned on some level. Perhaps he was a bit like the rumors said Oberyn Martell was. No, that wasn't exactly right. He was in love with the idea of Ned being related to him, but he loved Ned like a brother. When Jon and Lyanna were finally home in Winterfell, he felt at ease for a moment. Then he threw himself in training. He felt his body was stiffer than it should have been, but soon he felt it getting back to where it should be. Ned invited the men who joined him at Tower of Joy, and they drank and feasted for a whole night. He and Howland even had a brief brawl over who was a better friend to Lyanna. It ended with them leading the lords in the Song of Exile. Hell, even Ned had joined the song. Then they all drank too much, and the morning really, ended with Naruto and Ned having a drunken fist fight. Both great warriors looked like old drunks trying to hit each other and missing while shouting profanities at each other and insulting the other with idiotic things. Why would one's father smell of elderberries and how is it an insult? And what the hell is a hamster and how could it give birth to a human? The pain in their heads the next day put a dampen in all things for a while. The day after that they held meeting in the Godswood to decide what to do with Jon. Howland wanted Jon to be brought to Greywater Watch. Naruto informed him that Lyanna wouldn't let him go, at least not yet, and it would seem strange as to why Lyanna would join Jon there. Each man voiced their worries. None of them wanted another war, but none held Jon responsible for Rieger's doings. It was decided Ned would keep Jon in Winterfell until he would be old enough to do as the boy himself wished. Naruto would make sure the boy knew how to fight. All of them stood before the great weirwood and vowed their silence on the subject until Jon was at least 5 and 10 and to protect the boy from those who would harm him. They decided they would come together with the Lords of the North every 5 years to hear the worries and joys of the Cold Realm. It would give them the chance to surreptitiously meet and exchange news. The failure of the Boltons still weighed heavy on their minds. What's more, the men gathered here were located on the western side of the north. They would have slowly and gently prod who among the eastern side could be trusted to keep an eye on the Boltons. The Karstark so far were the first choice, being a cadet branch from the Starks themselves and who had a history of loyalty to the Starks and marrying into the Stark family and vice versa. That also made them the riskiest choice if war came. They had some of the greatest ties to the Stark family, so they were in the best position to stab them in the back. Decisions. Lord Bolton had already expressed some interest in marrying Lyanna, even if she couldn't have children. Ned wasn't even seen as rude by other houses when he turned Roose down. The man had fucked up royally during the incident where Naruto earned his nickname, and intentional or not, he was seen as bit of an incompetent. Doesn't matter if you punish your soldiers after the fact, people will have doubts. Ned wanted to trust the man and didn't want to blame him for the mistakes of others. Naruto still wanted the man's head on a spike. The next Bolton was already born, in Naruto's mind they could afford it. And even better, Roose's son's personality wasn't summed up with the word cunt, at least not yet. They would see how far the apple fell down from the tree. Lyanna wanted to act like everything was the same as before the rebellion, and Naruto let her. She had grown when she was separated from him and her family. She was still stubborn and spirited, but she wasn't naive anymore. She didn't show trust to new faces anymore. Especially those from the south. Which was one of the reasons she didn't trust her like Catelyn. That and how the woman treated Jon. Catelyn didn't want to even try and understand the old gods or northern traditions, and Lyanna didn't want to try to understand southern customs and the Seven. The women were extremely similar from two different cultures. Lyanna was a true northern lady with an iron will, and Catelyn seemed like a true southern lady with an iron will. Lyanna loved sword and horses, abhorring having to ride in a wheelhouse and sewing. Catelyn preferred prayer and ladylike things and didn't see it as a woman's place to ride horses and swing swords around. Naruto, as someone who was himself raised in a mix of traditions, could see their views objectively but still preferred the straightforward way of the north. That in Catelyn was annoying as all hell sometimes. You know that one person who thinks they know best and can't wait to inform everyone? To Naruto, that was Catelyn. If she were a man, he'd have punched them out already. Little Jon could be the sweetest boy ever. He could also be mischievous as hell when not looked after. Still, the boy had learned well so far. He had taken like fish to water. Robb, the future heir. He was growing up, same as Jon. But where Jon could keep it in his pants, Robb had been influenced by the older lad Theon, who had taken him to the whorehouse in Wintertown. Which was why Naruto kept Jon away from Theon unless the boy wanted to fight. Then John was allowed off the leash for a while to beat in the older boy's face. Rob also looked more like his mother than Ned. And the last time the meeting of lords had been held, 3 years back, the boy had thrown a massive bitch fit when he had lost to John in a spar. The lords of the north looked somewhat disappointed with the way Rob had acted. He was to be their new lord one day. It had actually led Ned to tanning the boy's hide in private setting later, which in turn led to Catelyn throwing a bitch fit. Naruto didn't want to know what Ned did, but Catelyn seemed a lot calmer after Ned talked to her in private. Sansa. She was like her mother and seemed to look down on anyone who acted like they lived in the north, even her own family. Enough said. Arya was like Lyanna reincarnated. Wild and untamed. Naruto was getting too old for a small Lyanna to be running around, and he had only turned 30 this year. At least she preferred following Jon. Bran followed Arya and Jon around like a puppy, wanting to play with his older siblings, which Jon was happy to do, and even if Arya didn't act like it, she liked to play with Bran as well. The boy was unique. Naruto sensed something off about the boy, but he was a true Stark still. Rickon, the youngest, was still at his mother's breast, so Naruto didn't have an opinion yet. He looked Stark, so that was a good sign at least. Naruto was brought out of his musings when Jon threw his last knife into the target. Naruto grabbed one of his own and laid it on the end of one of Jon's knives, leaving it sticking from the handle. Jon stared at it for a moment, then turned to Naruto. "How do you do that?" Naruto bent down a little and indicated like he was explaining a technique from Jon's perspective. "I aim at the middle, you see." Jon tried to shove Naruto, but the man easily let it just brush past him. Naruto patted the boy's head and told him to gather the knives, clean them, inspect them, and if need be, take them to the smithy for maintenance. After that was done, he had the rest of the day to do as he wished. Jon gave a nod and got to work, looking forward to spending the rest of his day with Bran and Arya, maybe even Robb. Naruto still remembered training with Sir Dane when he checked up on him from time to time. Now they were mostly equal. Sir Dane's skill were settling, Naruto's were still developing. Still, Naruto couldn't get a consistent winning streak against the Sword of Morning. In a couple of years maybe, not just yet. A year before the Greyjoy Rebellion, 5 years after Robert's rebellion, Naruto and Lyanna had begun their lovers' affair. In the 5 years, Lyanna had matured and grown to be someone who acknowledged her mistake of believing Reader's falsehoods and her role as the fool in them. Naruto had grown and even bedded a few women who struck his fancy. She'd apologized to him and shown true remorse. She still hadn't forgiven herself. The weird thing. Even though she blamed herself, she too described the fog in her actions. Naruto still had not told of the fog to anyone. But when she told him, he started to see if there were spies or assassins in Winterfell who had drugged them. It made sense. Naruto was the first try. Then they perfected it and moved on to Lyanna. When they didn't have access to her, the drugs wore off. He had uncovered at least 3 spies who had been dealt with. 2 were little birds, and 1 was getting gold from someone in Casterly Rock. Naruto could put 2 and 2 together. Having a head delivered with a note that had a few choice words scribbled on it, saw a few servants suddenly leaving the Stark household, but no one ever came knocking. That and the knife that, according to rumor, had been stuck on the headboard of a certain Lannister's bed during the night. Probably one or the other. He would have to be vigilant. Jon finally got done with his job and brought the knives to him, cleanly put in their case. Naruto took the case and told Jon to meet him for dinner later. Lyanna came from her observing spot and they went towards Ned Solar. Naruto wanted to know if they could hold a tournament of sorts for the youth of the north, a chance to prove who is the best with which weapon. And it would be nice to have a talk with his friend. Maybe they'd even hold a small melee for the older soldiers to show the young ones how it was really done. The thought of fighting his comrades, even with blunted blades, warmed his blood. To be continued. Winterfell, 297 AC. Jon remembered the lesson as he gazed at the stag from his hiding place. He knocked his arrow and focused on his target. His target, right behind the stag's shoulder, broadside. The spot that has the heart, lungs and liver all in fairly close proximity. Breathe in. Breathe out. He brought his left arm forward as he drew the bow. Breathe in. Breathe out. He simply breathed for a moment, evening out his heartbeat. He could feel it across his body. Breathe in. Breathe out. He could feel the tension in his muscles, straining against the drawn bow. The stag was still looking around on the shore. Its ears flicked, listening to any threats. Then finally, slowly, it dipped its head forward. Still glancing around, it began to drink the water. Breathe in. Hold. Loose. The arrow was swift. It hit the stag in its side. It cuts cleanly through. The stag staggers. Breathe out. Knock another arrow, in case it runs. It doesn't. The stag's legs give out and it falls on its side. Jon rises and calmly exits the tree line, walking towards his prey, the arrow still knocked. Naruto follows behind. Jon can't see that the stag still breathes its last. The light is still in the animal's eye. It wasn't going out fast enough for John. Killing was one thing. Torture was another. He walked around the stag so he had a clear view of its neck and head. Breathe in. Breathe out. He again drew his bow and walked closer to his target. Breathe in. Hold. Loose. Thunk, the arrow hit. Right into the base of the skull. No more breathing. Breathe out. Naruto patted him on his shoulder. Then he began tying the stag's legs together. It wasn't terribly big, nothing to tell tales about. But it wasn't small either. Average. John retrieved his arrows, examined them and placed the back in his quiver. When the stag's legs were tied, he helped secure it on Naruto's back. They began trekking back, Naruto carrying the prize, John watching the forest around them for threats. They walked without speaking, both enjoying the silence. In time they made their way back to Winterfell. As soon as they exited the tree line, John started asking how he did. Naruto assured he did well, but reminded he was only part way done. John silenced himself after that, focusing. They made their way inside Winterfell and to the outside door of the kitchen. Before they left this morning, they had prepared a firm table and tools for the next part. Naruto placed the stag on the table. John undid the ropes and made sure that his knife was sharp enough. He then began skinning the stag. He had seen this done multiple times and had been allowed to perform parts of the skinning. Naruto was of the opinion every man should know how to hunt for food, prepare the ingredients and then cook the meat. He also thought that minimal waste was necessary. He told John that his clan had lived in a similar mindset since, when on the run, you can't be wasteful. Made sense, why waste what you work for? John made a fairly good time. He didn't rush and the meat loss was minimal. In the end, the stag was skinned. They took the meat they would eat tonight. The rest would be preserved. The skin they took to the tanner. The bones they hadn't decided what to do with yet. Naruto told John he had to make the decision since it was his kill. Next came what John was dreading about this lesson. The cooking. He knew how to roast something. But to actually make food. This was going to be new. And Naruto wouldn't be helping him. He would be guided by the women from the kitchen. He constantly blushed and clammed up when they teased him and commented that John should come work with them in the kitchen. The comments about him looking prettier than them didn't help. Naruto only smirked, following the lesson. Slowly but surely, John followed the instructions given to him. What he managed to make in the end, a simple meat soup, actually looked like food. More importantly, it also tasted like food. The servants also got a taste. The women wanted to have John there permanently. John escaped the kitchens with Naruto's laughter echoing in the hall. Naruto took some of the soup to Lyanna. John was embarrassed again in the evening at dinner when Lyanna requested John make more food for her since the soup was so great. Arya got mad her favorite brother didn't bring her any and kicked John's shin. The little she-wolf was calmed somewhat when John promised he'd make some more the next day. Theon tried to be an ass and claimed that working in the kitchen was just the place for John since that's where servants and women belonged. John fired back with asking where cockless hostages belonged since Theon seemed to talk a lot but had yet to beat John in even a practice fight, hadn't betted a woman he hadn't paid for or even hunted any prey for himself. John added he doubted Theon could beat Arya or Sansa in a fight, which naturally got an agreement from Arya. The 8 and 10-year-old became furious and jumped over the table at John. John only caught Theon's outstretched arms, pulling himself backwards and throwing Theon over himself. Theon wasn't prepared for the maneuver and landed on his lower back, drawing a squeal-like yell from the older boy. Ned could only pinch the bridge of his nose in stress. Cat started screeching, making Rickon cry. Arya was howling with laughter with Lyanna. Bran smiled. Sansa gasped, shocked. Robb called for servants to get Mester Lewin. Naruto messed John's hair with a smile. The tournament was nearing. Today was a lesson but also training. John was allowed to participate in the competitions he wanted. He'd chosen archery, the youth melee, unarmed fighting, sword dueling and free dueling. The melee was meant to simulate a last man standing situation where all fighters entered as one. Dueling was fought one-on-one with swords, with free dueling accepting any blunted weapon to be used. Archery was an archery competition, the target being moved further away from the competitors until the winner remained. The prizes for each competition weren't as grand as a tourney down south, but they were open for all comers. The prizes for best 3 and were varied. The winner of a martial competition was promised a castle-forged steel weapon and a bag of gold. The people in 2nd and 3rd place received a castle-forged steel weapons, but no gold. If someone who wasn't exactly rich didn't win the main prize, you could still get a fair deal of money from a castle-forged steel weapon, so a fair deal of the younger fighters wanted to compete, even if they were going against the children of the Northern Lords. But the competitions weren't only limited to martial matters. They even had competitions for cooking, tracking, riding, forging and different crafts. The winners for these forms of competition were promised supplies, food and things useful to the average working man. A new working horse is sometimes more valuable than any fancy blade or jewels, unless you spent those blades and jewels to buy the damn horse. It also provided the chance for someone to prove themselves and availed themselves to better opportunities. You never knew where you would find the next gifted cook or smith. Even if some of the youths didn't win their competitions, they might show something to the people watching that might attract their interests. Finding a smart young lad could promise a new potential master. Even if that didn't come to pass, smart youths had time to create new ideas. Those new ideas might prove worth a castle. John was also looking forward to seeing Naruto competing. The man had increased his own training even more, and John felt like he would never catch up to him. He'd seen Naruto fighting multiple opponents at the same time without breaking a sweat. Naruto had also started teaching John about intent. He still felt a shiver when he remembered the time Naruto had demonstrated killing intent. Looking at Naruto, when he showed what he called killing intent, was terrifying. It felt heavy and oppressive. Your muscles tightened and you sort of felt like your stomach was going to come out through your mouth. If you wanted to fight, you needed to force yourself to move. Not so with running away, that came easier than breathing. Naruto explained that most animals had the innate ability to sense the intent of other beings, whether it be positive or negative. That intent could give you insight to a person or animal. Mostly people only sensed bloodlust or killing intent, and even then, it was mostly when they were the target. Soldiers and warriors that had been to battles could sense intent easier, and so were more wary. The Uzumaki clan taught their children about intent early because truly hiding intent was harder than sensing it. John got the basics down rather fast. Sensing the intent was to calm yourself and quiet your mind. It also opened you to the feelings of others. It also made it easier to understand others. Rather easy to sympathize with others when you could feel their emotions when deep enough. The change in John since he began learning about intent was fairly visible. The older woman carrying out her tasks despite her back pain, John could somewhat sense and tried to help them. Even though how Sansa may have acted, if she was sad, John would try to cheer her up. John also liked Lyanna more because he always felt positive feelings towards himself, like a warm bath. He tried to shut out the feelings from others around Catelyn. The woman didn't seem to have positive feelings on many things. Lust was also somewhat strange to experience from others. He also got the feeling that he really was somewhat pretty in women's eyes, considering what he felt from some of the maids. Asking about it from Naruto had led to a rather long and embarrassing lesson about women and the responsibilities from taking any woman to bed. The book about nerve points in the human body and their effects on a person was useful. Naruto going into an in-depth lesson about making use of those nerve points during sex was a bit too much in John's opinion, and so was the book from the East about different positions with drawings and step-by-step instructions. When John asked why Naruto had this, the man shrugged and told John that his clan didn't turn their noses up for most vocations and left it at that. John didn't get an answer when asking who translated all the books on the subject in question, when some of the manuals written on other, more important, subjects were still in their original language. John also had the pleasure of getting to know the Mormonts, and no matter the ribbing he got from Naruto, he would not admit to his crush on Daisy, the oldest of the Mormont sisters. The crush actually began when Theon tried to tell Daisy about a woman's role. The punch was beautiful. Wrist tight and straight. Straight into Theon's eye. It only got better when Rob tried to defend his friend. The slap wasn't as powerful, but still swift and hurt. Rob almost cried. So did John and Arya, but from laughing. Arya even asked if John would marry Daisy, since she wanted her as a sister. It didn't help that Daisy told John on the training yard that if he didn't want to stay at Winterfell when he was a bit older, he could always come guard her on Bear Island. They'd see what would happen after that. She giggled at him when she'd said it and Naruto almost choked laughing too hard from listening in. It didn't help when Daisy's two younger sisters Alyssane and Lyra joining in, but saying that John would much prefer to guard them than their ancient sister. That was the first time John had seen a woman swinging a mace at another woman. The girl's mother joined in, stopping things from going further, and claimed that if John was to be anyone's guard, he'd be hers. That set of Naruto's laughter again while Lyanna, for some reason, chucked her half-eaten apple at Mija's head. The following shot of maybe I'll take Naruto with me when I leave here, maybe he'd like to serve a warrior from Mij had both ladies of ancient houses in the training yard with blunted blades. From then on John would never forget that Lyanna had trained with Naruto since the dirt thrown in Mija's face, and the things that could generously referred to as cheap shots were used with aplomb. In the end you could tell Lyanna and Mij knew each other, and the fight dissolved into what looked like a slap fight between two little girls, rather than two warrior women, both giving insults at each other. After releasing some stress, they calmed and then dragged Mija's girls to the steam room. The next morning Naruto came into the hall to break his fast, sat across from John and Daisy, but he looked like he hadn't slept a wink. John, being concerned for his teacher, asked if he was fine. Naruto only patted him on the head and mumbled something about John being a good boy and that he was happy to sacrifice for him. John was even more confused. Mij and Lyanna came in, like they hadn't fought yesterday, both looking refreshed and bright-eyed. They sat on either side of Naruto and after wishing a good morning to John, asked if he was ready for today's training and what he had planned focusing on today. Their conversation was momentarily interrupted as Naruto kicked the table with his knee suddenly, drawing attention to himself. He mumbled a sorry and just lamely said he was a bit tired. Lyanna narrowed her eyes and glared at Mage, who was doing her best to look innocent. John was hoping he wasn't this weird when he was done growing. Daisy was looking at the three adults wide-eyed and made a small ooh, like she just figured something out. Mage only smirked at her oldest. From then on Daisy seemed to be giving Naruto measuring glances. Like maybe she was thinking of challenging him to a fight. Naruto didn't really fight that day, he just stayed near Lyanna and shouted advice to John. John was still happy to train with the Mormont girls. Each was strong and each could smash through the defense of anyone their age. He was also officially done with the word dodge. That came from Naruto anytime one of the Mormont sisters swung at him. Now he didn't try to stop any hits he could either dodge or deflect. The rumors of the heir of Winterfell siding with the hostage over one of his future bannermen didn't exactly endear him to the people he needed to impress in order to not get deposed from his future rule. It also didn't help that Daisy had already established herself as someone similar to her mother, so questions about Rob's behavior were rearing their heads. It also put into question whether or not Rob was of the North. His behavior wasn't exactly in line with someone who would be the quiet wolf's son. Neither were his looks. Ned was quite aware of this and for the first time had dragged Rob into his solar by the back of the boy's neck, then slammed the door closed. When Rob emerged, he looked like he just faced the White Walkers themselves. Rob threw himself into training as well. The tournament was his best chance to actually prove himself, possibly his last chance. He even wanted to spar with John more. Rob lost constantly, but still continued trying. Ian boasted that he'd win the archery competition with ease. He did not train like John and Rob. He just sometimes trained half-heartedly, preferring whores and wine to training. Even Sansa seemed to get into the tournament after John told her it wasn't only about swinging a sword. Sansa wished to participate into the clothes-making portion. She even visited Wintertown to see how the people making such things as a living made their clothes. The tournament was shaping to be interesting. John was looking forward to fighting the Mormont girls again and getting to fight others of his age. Not long now. Winterfell, 297 AC. Naruto Pav. The tournament so far had been quite fun. The competitions opened with most of the mundane. Sansa had done surprisingly well considering her age, but she still lost against the people who actually worked for their living. While she was gifted with artistry and the colors she used were more varied because of the funds she had to start with, the durability and usefulness of her creations was lacking. Not many people had use for clothes that just looked fancy. Could they be sold? Of course. But North wasn't known for trading their clothes down south. They traded wool and other ingredients useful for clothes, but actual clothes trading didn't happen other than in winter. And if the clothes couldn't actively chase the cold away, they weren't very useful. The winning creation was from a farmer who created clothes for the locals who knew him. They mixed leather for tough fieldwork and wool for warmth. The leather was also easy to clean and was hard to permanently stain. Also, the parts needed for creating such clothes weren't foreign and could be rather easily procured locally. The judges saw usefulness of a creation that made use of locally found parts and could be easily modified by adding or subtracting. It also provided a fair bit of protection because of the leather used. The simplicity was its strength. One would think Sansa would be crushed by not winning. One would be wrong. Sansa was disappointed, but Ned took her aside to talk for a while. She seemed a lot lighter after that and even wanted to talk to the farmers and other peasants on what they thought would be useful. Turned out her visiting Wintertown was so she could scout out competition on what their price range was. If she was in the south, she might have won. She forgot the main problem of the north. It's the north. The coldest part of the Seven Kingdoms. She had begun working on her first jacket already. Now she incorporated usefulness to her creations. The jacket was done in multiple layers, the bottom being the warmest layer, the topmost done in leather with fur accents. She even thought to start creating them as gifts to the families in the north and even the south to better relations and be sort of an invitation to the heads of the houses. What better way than to invite someone than to create a personalized jacket with their house's imagery and protects you from the environment you're traveling to. This first jacket was for Ned. Wool dyed gray with dark leather reserved for the top part. She was still only getting started, but the base was there. They had found several promising youths for different vocations, which was only fueled more by the lords or their representatives vying for their skills. For example, the farmer who won against Sansa got multiple offers, but in the end, it seems House Manderley won, since they had the most to offer, at least in coin. But now was not the time for that. The adults would get to fight first. And Naruto's blood was pumping harder than in a while. He was standing in one of the hallways, with others, waiting for the melee to start. He had chosen a long sword and a short sword for this venue. He was standing next to John Greetjin, both looking towards the fighting. Greetjin taller than Naruto, by nearly a head. He was also experienced but way too honest. Greetjin had already told Naruto that Naruto would be the first to fall to him. Naruto was looking forward to knocking his old war buddy on his ass. Then, the horn sounded and the doors opened. The participants walked out of the hallways to the area reserved for their fight. No one fought just yet. There was an almost eerie calmness to the air. Then Greetjin broke it, "If Uzumaki's weapons break, everyone stand away from him. I want to see if the little bastard start picking up rocks or pulls out his to fight with." And like that the dam broke. The veterans of the last war started howling in laughter, Greetjin's laughter joining them. Naruto only grinned, shook his head and yelled back, "You better hope I go for the rock, Greetjin, or I might tear something off from you to use. Though what I tear off from you is probably the size of a rock, not the sword I'd draw from my trousers." The laughter got even louder. "Oh, small am I? We can drop our trousers right now and you'll all see why I'm named Great spiked back. "Nay, we shouldn't do it, Lord Umar. If I drop my trousers your wife and daughters might abandon you and move to Winterfell for good," Naruto gave back. Greetjin only laughed harder with Naruto joining in. Then the horn sounded, the laughter stopped, and the roars erupted. The first 20 seconds could only be called chaos. Thank the gods for blunted steel or multiple houses would have lost their leaders. Naruto was a whirlwind, bashing his way through the crowd, working his way to Greetjin. He wanted a fight. He would definitely get a fight. They finally met and clashed. Where Greetjin looked like a giant breaking the weapons of other men, Naruto looked like a champion of the first men, ready to do war with a mythical being. That was why both of them requested and gave no quarter. Naruto dodged and deflected all he could of the mighty blows. Greetjin attacked and kept Naruto from getting inside his reach. They had fought side by side. Had seen how the other moved and worked. Knew each other's weaknesses. And both were wearing demented grins below their helmets as they clashed. The enjoyment was palpable for them. Greetjin gave a swing from high in an angle and managed to break the short sword Naruto was using for deflection, which only freed Naruto's hand for strengthening his hold on his longsword and quickened his handling of the blade immensely. Naruto's swing came from below and was aimed at Greetjin's jaw, which was evaded with a simple head movement. Naruto continued with a mix of high-speed swings and thrusts at the bigger man's joints, so much that it could be compared to a blur. Greetjin could already feel the swelling taking place, it was getting annoying. With a final mighty yell and a swing, he brought his great sword around to almost cleave Naruto in two. And he missed. For Naruto, this was a play-by-play from the last war, where Greetjin had surprised multiple opponents who were basically trying to pinprick him to death by cutting them down with that single move. In that moment Greetjin was overextended. And Naruto wouldn't waste that. With a grunt he thrust his longsword forward, right into the side of the man's helmet. Right before the blade hit, he twisted the blade, his sword arm, his torso and the leg behind his body all in cinch. When used with a normal blade, the technique would have turned it into a drill that would have shot through a man's armor and body. An average man would have had their head caved in by the technique when used by a blunted blade. Greetjin only fell over, passed out, as his brain rattled and his helmet torn off his head from taking the glancing blow from a lower angle. For Naruto there was no reprieve. He turned and faced the next man who looked ready to piss themselves, since Naruto just took out what looked like the mountain's cousin. Well, they were fine with leaving fights like this alone, as soon as it was over, you were free game. But still, they came and were smacked around. After a while the fights had dissolved from chaos to single fights. Naruto was facing Roose Bolton surprisingly, seems the man wanted to win himself back some recognition. To Naruto that was a no-go, so as soon as he saw his chance, he deflected the man's blade upwards and kicked him in the groin. The man went down coughing and heaving. In the end it came down to the veterans. A champion of House Karstark that Naruto had simply dubbed the one who looked like a bear and drank like a fish, Naruto and William Dustin. The Karstark champion was eager, but Naruto was swift and the champion was disarmed and sent to celebrate his placing as third. And then there were two. William Dustin, one of the men from the Tower of Joy. They simply stood across from one another, evening out their breathing. The duel began basic. Swing, block, swing, parry, thrust. Both were tired. But where Naruto was only winded, William was ready to fall down for sleep. His blade was heavy and getting heavier with each swing. He finally missed a block and Naruto's blade smacked to his side. It felt like he just cracked something. William grit his teeth and made on final lunging thrust. And got smacked in the face with the flat of Naruto's blade. This was a good place to stop, William decided as sweet unconsciousness took him. Naruto let out a deep breath. Winning was good, winning was fun. If winning was fun, drinking with his old friends was great. It had been a while since they fought together, ate together and drank. The singing and merriment went on deep into the night. Naruto was forced to retire for the evening when Lyanna told him he could either drink himself half to death or get rewarded by her. Reward sounded better, even if Greetjin had started to comment on his ability to drink, which naturally opened the floodgates for more japes and jokes when he declared he'd be retiring for the evening. The reward turned out to be well worth it. A massage and firelight on Lyanna's bed had him relaxed. Then simply lounging with his hands behind his head on the bed as Lyanna rode him slowly, kissing Naruto softly while she played with his hair. They were in no hurry. Lyanna always seemed to like looking down on him and watching his face as she bounced her perfect behind up and down. She brought herself down and stopped, then did a figure eight with her hips. Naruto gave a groan and she smirked down at him. What was that before the melee began? She slowed her movements down to a crawl. What? Naruto responded distracted. He got a deep kiss and when they parted, she pulled on his bottom lip with her teeth. Really? Are you sure you don't wish to drop your trousers for Greetjin's wife and daughters? She asked and he could feel the threat wafting off her words. He also felt her nails digging into his scalp. He unclasped his hands from behind his head, took her hands into his firmly, and straightened her arms behind her back. She was now peering down at him severely. He intertwined their fingers and held her close. He tried to bring his face closet for a kiss and she backed away, not letting him make contact. He jazzed her so that he was sitting up with her in his lap, straddling him. She still stared down at him. Do you want other women? Is that it? Am I not enough? She questioned, still moving calmly up and down. Naruto let one of her hands go and brought the freed hand to push a loose hair from her face to behind her ear. No, I don't want others. You're stuck with me unfortunately. And I won't share you with other men either. You knew that when you took your clothes off the first time with me. The thing today was a joke with people who traveled to hell and back with me. Besides, you're the one who brought Mij with you. She hummed, leaning her cheek into his hand, and sighed. She turned her head without breaking eye contact and kissed his palm. Naruto brought their intertwined hand up from around her side and kissed her knuckles. She gave a small smile, then freed her fingers from him and draped her arms over his shoulders, still riding him. They were leaning their foreheads together, nose to nose, staring at each other. They nuzzled each other and Lyanna gave his nose a small kiss. Naruto gave her one on the mouth and she picked up her pace. When they separated from the kiss, Lyanna spoke quietly. The thing with Mij was a one-time thing. We're never doing something like that again. We shouldn't have done it in the first place. It felt exciting when she offered the idea. Now I feel like every woman is out for this. She suddenly tightened up, making him groan. They can be after it all they like. Not like they're going to get it, Naruto whispered back, kissing her deeply. Lyanna pulled back and stared at Naruto in thought for a while. Let's not hide anymore. Naruto was silent for a moment. Are you sure? Lyanna gave a wolfish grin, then raised herself off him. She shuffled back, turned her back to him, positioned herself on all fours, and then grinned at him over her shoulder. Naruto shook his head with a wry grin, got on his knees and shuffled closer. Adeline was walking back to the family quarters that evening when she heard what sounded like a demonic spirit's yell emanating from somewhere down the hall. She goggled wide-eyed at the sound. She then blushed at the words the sound carried. Yes. Right there. Adeline swiftly retreated to her room's mortified Chaz by the sound of yes. I love your see. That's when she shut the door. These Northerners clearly had no sense of propriety. In the morning Naruto pulled on yesterday's clothes and waited for Lyanna to dress, watching her teasingly prance around the room wearing almost nothing. They went down to break their fast, hand in hand. Naruto was amused by the goggling they got from the castle's workers when they emerged from Lyanna's room and headed down. John was the first to greet them, giving them a bright smile as he spotted them holding hands. Naruto wouldn't be taking part in the rest of the competitions. He'd gotten what he wanted, the opportunity to beat the hell out of some of his friends. He was happy to simply sit back to watch how John did against his age group and how would take which competition in the adult competitions. The competitions were arranged in a way where the adult competed first and the next day the youths would compete in the same thing. So today, John would be competing in his first melee. Rob and Tian would be joining from Winterfell. The only other competitor Naruto knew of was Ramsay Snow, the bastard son of Roose Bolton. He only knew of the little freak because he had seen the boy's eyes. There was something missing inside the boy, something that should exist in all people, something vital. His first reaction would have been to crush the boy's head before something happened. Trust Roose to seed something that shouldn't exist in this world. But it would be hard to explain why he cracked open the head of a boy whose father he wanted to kill in the last war as a warning. Why couldn't they live north of the wall? Nobody would have complained there. Probably. The melee for the young ones was almost hilariously bad for Naruto. John had won, and he was proud of him for that, but he was a bit disappointed in the rest, since John was the only one with enough of a mind to duck out of the way and let them take each other out. Rob had also made it quite far, into the last 5 standing. But, competing with someone who was gifted in war and was still basically fresh as a field of flowers on a nice southern summer day was close to impossible. It was the same as with the adults, a small series of one-on-one fights. But there were 10 remaining, meaning they all turned on each other and fought in individual duels at the same time. They were also green. The smart thing would have been to take out John together or fight him one at a time, then see who had enough strength to win. Lyanna and Arya sat together and cheered John as he fought. Lyanna gave his cheek a kiss for being a good trainer. When they finally went down to congratulate John for his win, Naruto suggested both ladies congratulate John for his win with a kiss. He hadn't seen John that shade of red in a while. Arya had balked at the idea but had given her big brother a smooch on the cheek after Lyanna had laid one on John's forehead, to the boy's embarrassment. Judging by his grin, Naruto would be teasing the boy about this for weeks. That evening Naruto and Lyanna were laying in her bed spooning. Lyanna was using Naruto's arm as a pillow, playing with said arm's fingers. She sometimes liked to do that. Compare the sizes of their hands by putting them together or tracing the scars on his arms and hands, like she was trying to soothe them. Naruto was laying with his eyes closed, taking in Lyanna's scent. Lyanna spoke barely above a whisper. He grunted, getting closer. Thank you, for John, Lyanna continued. You're the one who birthed him. I think you've done more than me on the subject of John, Naruto chuckled. She smacked the arm she was laying on. Not that stupid. Thank you for turning him into a young man. Naruto chuckled at the smack. My pleasure. He kissed the back of her neck. They both lay there for a moment. Want to give him a brother or sister? Lyanna spoke quietly. Naruto only hummed and thought. If it'll happen, he spoke relaxed. That got a small smile from Lyanna. She then rose her upper body and turned to face Naruto. He only inched one of his eyes open and was pushed on his back. He was about to raise his head to question what Lyanna was doing when she started trailing kisses on his neck and torso, moving downwards. He didn't honestly know if John could get more siblings, but he and Lyanna were going to have fun trying to find out. Widerfell, 297 AC. Naruto Pav. Naruto liked to think he was quite sturdy and had stamina to spare. That being said, his lower back was starting to slowly feel like it was being ground to dust and he felt tired every day. Lyanna had been very insistent on trying for a child. The spirit was willing, but the flesh was turning spongy and bruised. He needed a break. Preferably before his fell off, his back broke or he died from exhaustion. His solution. Go to his sources and find a bandit group, possible spies or any other excuse to leave Winterfell so he could relax by breaking someone else's face and or body. He would have to take John with him. Because John would find out somehow. Then Lyanna would find out because John didn't have any resistance against her. Lyanna would follow him and he'd be back to square one. That being said, he found out about disappearances that had been happening near Dreadford, the seat of House Bolton. Maybe Roose had started up his family's traditions again and Naruto would get to finally parade his head around on a stick. Now that was what Naruto could call relaxation. Fighting and making the world a better place, even if it's not by much. Selling it to Ned had been easy, even if the older man could see straight through his excuses. Ned wasn't complaining, it was a win-win situation for him. Not only would Naruto be solving the issue of the disappearances, he'd also be taking John with him for a while, so Catelyn would calm down somewhat and he wouldn't have to think about when Naruto would put a baby in Lyanna. Ever since Lyanna and Naruto had stopped actively hiding what they were doing, he'd felt anxious about what would happen to the whole Stark family if Robert found out and started thinking he'd been slighted personally. He never wanted to see the demon of Trident ever again, especially now that he had a crown on his head. This would calm his nerves, at least for a moment. Naruto and John were riding east towards Dreadford. Before leaving, Naruto had ground up some form of yellowish plant buds from the east to make a paste to dye his hair black. Both Naruto and John were wearing dark traveling cloaks. Under the cloaks they had clothes made from a mix of dark gray and off-white, with furs for warmth and a hood to protect from the wind. The armor they were using had greaves, shoulder pauldron, shin guards, guards for the outer thighs, and an armor for the torso. The basis for the armor was made from bronze, with dyed leather added in multiple layers to give the armor toughness, while also mostly retaining the lightness. The greaves had hook-like protrusions that made it possible for the user to scale trees or even walls. It wasn't full armor, but the maneuverability was almost second to none. The only way you could enhance an armor type like this was if the parts were made from Valyrian steel, but getting an armor like that to John would take time. It had left a few days ago and weren't in a hurry, but had made it past the White Knife already and were moving towards the Lonely Hills, west of Dreadford. That night they made it to a small village, hamlet really. They found a place to stay with a farmer and his family in exchange for some coin. After their evening dinner they asked about any goings-on they should know about on their journey. They were told of the rumors of young women disappearing southwest of Weeping Water. Some travelers had told rumors of demons cackling in the night from the woods as they chased the women down with their hounds of hell. Any man who went to investigate was never heard of again. Was it wrong that Naruto was happy after hearing there were demons in the woods? Yes, definitely wrong. Wrong in so many ways. Still, that didn't mean he didn't almost get to half-mast just thinking about fighting an actual demon. Everyone had their own fetish, whether they admitted it or not. For example, after getting older, Robert liked women who were easy. Or drank like a sailor. Or were drunk and easy. Naruto's fetish was women who could fight, with words or with arms. Part of that was the violence, the challenge. His family had dedicated themselves to finding warriors to strengthen their bloodline. A good fight or a kill was fun for them after they started doing it, it was in their blood. Most people were traumatized by war. Uzumaki clan member reacted similarly in the start, but they also got over it quickly and started to want more of it. The Baratheons may have had fury in their blood, but the Uzumaki had bloodlust. The next morning Naruto and John moved out again. They knew they were on the right trail, so they slowed their movement and focused on being alert. The entire day of riding they didn't see, hear or smell anything out of the norm. The same continued during the night, with no issues. But, the day after that they heard hounds in the woods. They hitched their horses on the side of the road, left their cloaks, got their weapons ready and moved out. Like shadows, they moved through the trees. Without a sound. Soon they caught up. Not with the hounds, with what the hounds were chasing. A young red-headed woman, a girl still, running for her life in torn clothes mostly made of furs. She hadn't spotted them. Judging by how she was running she would run into them. Naruto and John both knocked their arrows. The hounds were catching up, the girl was nearing. As John and Naruto rose, drawing their bows, the girl froze like she had hit an invisible wall. She saw the hooded men aiming arrows at her, she seemed to give up and fell to her knees in shock. They released the arrows and she was sure this was her end. The arrows missed her, sailing past her head. They began walking closer, knocking new arrows. They drew again, now close enough so she could tell they were aiming behind her. They released their arrows again and walked past her. She turned her head to look behind her. 4 hounds were dead. 3 more were rushing at them still. Naruto dropped his bow next to him and drew throwing knives from his belt and threw one each at the hounds nearing. They hit the ground dead. Naruto grabbed his bow and put it on his back. John, the hill behind us. Get the girl there, I'll collect the arrows and knives. Go. Naruto spoke calmly and quickly. The girl was confused but still squeaked in shock as John lifted her quite easily over his shoulder and started moving. She didn't know how to react other than to try and reach for an arrow from John's quiver. Don't do that, I'll need those soon, John spoke as he ran with her over his shoulder. Her hand stopped. This was not how she imagined this going. She knew coming south was a shit idea. John carried her till they were on the hill behind some foliage and then told her to get as low as possible. She almost kicked him in the balls for that. Naruto came running up quickly. Girl, do you know to handle a knife? He spoke quickly. Aye, but I probably know to handle that bow even better than you, the red-headed girl spoke. Naruto turned his head to the girl, tilted it to the side and then shoved the bow in her hands and unstrapped the quiver on his back holding it to the girl. She momentarily froze when he gave her the bow, then snapped to action and strapped the quiver on her back. She knocked one and got on a knee to wait. Name's Naruto and the little brooder over there is John. Naruto introduced them to the girl. Igrit, the girl answered. Naruto hummed from beyond the wall. Naruto spoke far too casually. The girl just nodded. John felt he was going to get a headache in his future. Are you here alone? Naruto lowered his voice. I came here with more people, we just wanted to get more south. The cunt who put those hounds after me killed everyone who made it through. Said I'd make better prey than usual since I managed to kill one of his friends. You might call me savage, but that one is wrong in the head. Igrit's voice was barely above whisper, she seemed to have read the situation as quick as John, they needed to be quiet. They stayed there, ready and waiting. Then they heard the hoofs. 8 riders, led by a face Naruto recognized. Well, he might not get to put Rusa's head on a stick, but the thing he seated was a good consolation's prize. They the ones? Naruto spoke in a low tone to confirm. Yes. Those are the cunts, Igrit hissed through grit teeth. Alright then. Let's see what they do, if they start riding this way, shoot the horses first. But wait until they're all within good range, Naruto instructed, taking out a throwing knife in one hand and his hand axe in the other. Bruce's boy, Ramsey, was riding around agitated, looking at the dead hounds and roaring threats into the forest and telling the other riders what idiots they were. He finally dismounted to get a better look at the dead hounds, he kneeled next to one and almost softly touched its side, then seemed to lose his nerve and started punching the carcass in its ribs. He kept punching for a while, then stood and started stomping on it. After he was done, he stood there panting, then looked up the hill, where the tracks lead. He mounted his horse and roared for the riders to follow him. Ramsey turned his horse towards the hill and started riding like the demons were after him, the other riders following him. As they rode up the hill, Ramsey's horse suddenly had an arrow shaft sticking out of its head. The idiom ass over tea kettle would have been apt as the horse's legs gave out and it went tumbling over its head with the speed it had picked up. Ramsey could be considered lucky as he fell off the horse before it could crush him. As the boy tried to lift himself up, he looked around himself and found that his little helpers had their horses shot. One rider tried to take off towards Dreetford, but before he could get far, he had an arrow through his throat. Ramsey finally picked himself up and pulled out his short sword from his dead horse's saddle. He started rushing towards the top of the hill, the still alive helpers running behind him, but gaining on the younger male. Naruto stepped out from the foliage and threw a knife into the neck of the man rushing next to Ramsey. John stepped out with his own short sword ready. Another man died to an arrow. John started walking forward, ready to intercept Ramsey. Naruto pulled out a dagger in a reverse hold with his left hand, readying for a fight. John met Ramsey in melee. In that instant, Naruto passed both fighters and rushed the rest of the men. The first man swung his sword downwards, Naruto deflected the strike to his right side, letting the man continue his motion with his hand axe, which was followed by a slash with a dagger to the jugular, getting a spray of blood. Naruto continued his movement by stepping around the first man with a clockwise twist, showing his back to the dying man, only to be met with the next fighter who tried to swing from Naruto's right to left, but only got his sword deflected upwards and using his momentum. Naruto turned his upper body, cut the man's open side by bringing his left arm around in a rising swing, which turned into a stab to the man's throat. The third man was rushing with a spear. An arrow swished past him and hit the fourth man, who was following the third, straight in the chest. Naruto dodged the spear's thrust by deflecting the man's thrust to Naruto's left side with the axe, and with a counterclockwise spin, he stabbed the dagger into the spear wielder's armpit, probably tickling the man's heart as he did so. The last fighter had slowed in his running as he tried to process what had just occurred in front of him. Ramsey and John were still fighting, but everyone except this guy was dead. He did what any good minion does in this situation. He tucked tail and ran. He only managed to turn around when he felt something hit the back of his neck. Suddenly the ground was rushing up to him and he couldn't feel his body anymore. Then he saw boots next to his face and the larger hooded man reached for something behind the dying minion. When it was pulled out, the minion knew no more. Naruto pulled his hand axe free from the minion's neck and wiped it and his dagger clean on the dead minion's clothes. He turned to the fight John and Ramsey were having. While Ramsey was fighting, John was playing it seemed. Ramsey was full of small cuts and was glaring at John. Then Ramsey did something stupid. He tried to rush John. Ramsey raised his sword high up like he was going to cut John in two with one swing, only for John to bring his left arm around quickly and suddenly a knife was sticking out from Ramsey's neck. Ramsey lost feeling in his fingers and the sword fell from his grip as he tried to gurgle out insults. He fell to his knees, trying to grasp at his neck to staunch his bleeding terror in his eyes. Look at him John, remember that look on his face. He's your first. You always need to remember your firsts Naruto spoke walking back up the hill. John did as he was told and kept his eyes on Ramsey. The little beast tried to gurgle something out but finally fell on his side, not even strong enough to try and staunch the bleeding anymore. His eyes were hooding up, his vision unfocused and searching. John knelt next to Ramsey and with a fluid motion, pulled out the knife in Ramsey's neck. Ramsey didn't move or make a sound after that as his lifeblood came out and his eyes glazed over. Well done kiddo Naruto patted him on the shoulder. That seemed to snap John out of his thought and he suddenly pulled his hood on and vomited. Yeah, get it all out Naruto told him as he went looking for some good sturdy sticks. Igri came out from the foliage, looking at the dead cunt. Then turned to the puking young man next to the body. After John was done, he rinsed his mouth using his water skin. Do you want to fuck? Ygritte spoke up, getting a bark of laughter from Naruto. John goggled at the apparent wildling, mouth still full of water after already rinsing it out. He then slowly swallowed it I thank you for the offer, but I don't really the boy was lost for words. Oh, you like to take it up the ass. I can work with that too, I just need time and wood to carve what I need. The girl nodded as if in understanding, Naruto was slowly losing it nearby if the sound was anything to go by. No. I like girls, but I think we should get to know each other before doing anything like that. John exclaimed flustered. Ygritte seemed amused and gave a grin, opening her mouth a bit, tilting her head to the side like she was admiring a treasure she had just found. John only got more red. Naruto came back humming a jaunty tune while carrying 7 sticks with him. He looked at the 2 youths and smirked. He then went to one of the bodies, cut off one of their tunics and made a makeshift bag out of it. The youths were wondering what he was doing until he started cutting of the heads of the dead men and putting them in the bag, well, except for the one whose dead body rode off on the horse that survived, God knows where it had run. "Well, little Wilderling, would you like to come with us? I don't think you can expect a better welcome anywhere else than with us. John, could you grab the other end?" Naruto indicated to the sticks he had strapped together to make a carrying pole which he had suspended the head bag from. They started walking towards their horses with the heads. After a moment of thinking, Ygritte followed the two men. They made it to their horses and Naruto undid the straps holding the sticks together while John handed Ygritte an extra traveling cloak. Naruto then began mounting the heads on the sticks and erecting the sticks on the side of the road. "Well, we have a bit of a ride back to Winterfell, but we're in no hurry. Ygritte, you'll ride with John. And please don't grope him too much. He has to keep his horse under control," Naruto told them after he was done. They mounted and began to ride back towards Winterfell. The next few days would be an endless source of amusement for Naruto as John was forced to put up with Ygritte even if he was a bit disappointed that he didn't get to fight actual demons and hellhounds. To be continued. Winterfell, 297 AC. Naruto Pav. If John didn't marry Ygritte, Naruto was quite sure he was going to adopt the girl into his family. The amusement factor on its own was worth it for not just him, but Lyanna and Arya as well. And Ned, even if the surly prig wouldn't admit it, was also amused by the girl's antics. Surprisingly, or rather unsurprisingly, Lyanna had taken the young girl under her wing and they were very much birds of a feather. And since Lyanna got so well along with Ygritte, it meant that Arya also was made very familiar with the girl and had already requested that John marry her so that she would be Mater's sister. Naruto of course was forced to chime in that Ygritte might have to fight the Mormont girls for John's hand in marriage. Ygritte seemed to find the idea exhilarating. The shade of red they had managed to make John was comparable to hot cola or ripe strawberry. And they said raising kids was hard, shows those amateurs what for. Ygritte was gifted with a bow. Her style wasn't something strictly taught and she was almost instinctual in its use. Made it perfect for her. She didn't like normal targets, but hunting was something she excelled at. She almost seemed like a better teacher for John concerning survival training, but she had the edge. Even if John and Ygritte didn't crow out about it, it was pretty easy to see that they were closer than normal, and John seemed to be building a tolerance to the flirtations of the workers of the castle, and Naruto had caught the two youths kissing. Not very passionately, John seemed to want to take it slow. Naruto felt proud of the young man. The break Naruto took with John was just what he needed. He'd gotten to rest and killing cunts as Ygritte put it was just what he needed to de-stress. He and Lyanna had broken her bed from. She had been sleeping in his room since. Naruto was building a new sturdier bedroom since his own bedroom was making sounds it shouldn't be making. Lyanna's idea had been to just get rid of the bed and put down more furs. She claimed it would be their next challenge, breaking down the floor since they'd be using the floor as a bed. As amused as Naruto was by that idea, he wanted a bed. Especially since Lyanna wanted that baby. Didn't help that now that they'd broken a bed once, Lyanna wanted to do it a second time. He truly loved that woman. As soon as he had gotten back, he'd gotten word of chatter from King's Landing. Something was wrong. The things he'd heard didn't paint a clear picture, but certain pieces were moving in a way indicating something was happening. It might be a power struggle in the small council or someone targeting the small council. One or two small birds had disappeared along with certain workers in the Red Keep that were frequent patrons of the brothels of the city. So far there hadn't been anything overt, but it seemed that either someone was taking out the spider and mockingbird to make room for themselves, or the two were trying to make more room for themselves. You never knew in these things. It might even be that the queen was trying to show off to her father like 5 years ago. According to his info, the old lion was not impressed at the time. The man seemed apathetic to his daughter's attempts to prove her intelligence and power. Then again it seemed she herself wasn't aware that punching down on others from a position of power wasn't that impressive to a man whose first true show of force only needed to be his last. Especially since she wasn't the one who clawed themselves into that position. The old lion couldn't give two shits about who was on the small council. He had real power in varied forms and if he wanted, he could change the political landscape as necessary and it wasn't like Robert could truly stop him. The Falcon could, but the old lion didn't seem to be in any hurry to bring about changes as long as John held the position of the king's hand. The Falcon sometimes seemed to act like a doting father to the king who never truly punished his boy and the old lion was fine with that. If Naruto had to guess, the old lion felt he was superior to the Falcon. Which wasn't exactly weird. The man had been lauded as the greatest hand of the king in the last century, put his vassals back into line when they bared their teeth at him and he was the good father of the king. That and the Falcon was enabling someone similar to the old lion's own father, someone who couldn't wield power correctly and preferred women and drink to discipline. Naruto had only met Tuin, the old lion, once. As insane as it sounded, Naruto actually got along with the older man and if his mother had been offered a place in Casterly Rock, she'd have gotten along better with Twin than with Rickert in the start. Say what you will, the man was unscrupulous, was still in good shape in his older age, wanted to ensure the survival of his line, and didn't hesitate to take out his enemies. Those were all things any Uzumaki could respect. In another reality, Kushina might have at least tried to seduce Tuin for his seed, as he had brought out Jamie and was himself extremely gifted in the art of war. He got along with the older man, but he didn't agree with some of his choices, for example, keeping Sir Grigor Clegane and Armory Lorch from Dornish hands. Naruto didn't try to act holier than thou. It wasn't like the Uzumaki hadn't butchered children before, it being one of the dumber and more creative tactics the Uchiha had tried to employ before. The basic idea was that the Uzumaki would hesitate in killing them. They hadn't. Who knows, in another world Naruto might have killed Clegane and Elia Martell, and her children would have been alive. Used as political pawns and hostages, but still alive. And if Tuin had fathered Naruto, he might have been a brooder. He might have kept his hair in some Asinine fashion, like growing it longer and making it stick up over his head. Like a duck's tail feathers. God, he could have looked like a dour duck but with no humor. A fate worse than death dodged there. The Duck Knight Naruto Uzumaki. A shudder went through Naruto as he thought that. Anyhow, Tuin had time to wait. His plans were already in place. He had secured the throne for his family, at least for now, so someone making waves in the upper echelons wasn't a good or bad thing. At least as long as it wasn't aimed at his pieces. He shuddered to think of the chaos that would come if Tuin lost his best pieces one way or another. The balance would instantly shift, and there were multiple people who would try to take advantage, and if a clear winner wouldn't emerge very quickly, some of those vying for power would come to blows, maybe even publicly, which would send waves that would hit those on the outside, and they would try to take advantage as well. The last time they had seen something like this, Robert became king. They North couldn't afford a fuck up similar to that so soon. And again, the pieces Tuin had were in important places, but they weren't the greatest to use. Naruto had met Cersei as well, and the woman seemed like a spoiled brat, and spoiled brats tried to think for themselves, usually with disastrous consequences. As far as Naruto knew about Cersei's oldest, the boy was a male copy of the mother. The younger children he hadn't received information on. So as far as Naruto could see, Tuin had two very important pieces already, but they were also pieces he couldn't reliably control. The number of ways the whole system could go sideways after Robert's heart gave out from too much fat and wine was making Naruto's head hurt. He wondered how Tuin slept at night thinking about the situation. Probably the same way Naruto did, having confidence that the strength of their arms would carry them through. But where the strength Naruto was part of was from loyalty and respect, Tuin only had respect and fear. Fear was scarcely easy to manipulate by everyone. Naruto had informants in many places, some of whom didn't even know who he was and that they were informants. Being a soldier during wartime was a great time to build an information network if you knew what you were doing. He was still pretty jealous of Varys. The amount of information that man had access to was truly astounding. Oh, the things he could do with an information network that vast. He was the one who had to work on building the Uzumaki information network in Westeros by himself. Across the ocean the Uzumakis before him had already created a network that had shifted and changed as they traveled, but even that paled in comparison what Varys had created in his single lifetime. He'd have to negotiate some sort of deal for Varys to hand over the reins for his little birds before he passed. Not necessarily to Naruto, but someone else. As far as Naruto knew the man didn't have someone to inherit and it was a shame to pass on the opportunity. Maybe find some intelligent youth who could be trained by him or something similar. So many things to do, so little time to get them done. He'd have to keep his ear to the ground and be vigilant to what was going to happen in order to minimize the chaos. God's damn Ned with some loose bowels, the man didn't wish to play the game, so Naruto was forced to do it for him. Rickard was so much easier. The former Lord Stark didn't like the game, but was willing to play, unlike his second son. Even Brandon, being a meathead he was, could and would play the game more than Ned. Being in the north, the game didn't immediately extend this far from King Landing, but that only meant the aftereffects of actions there took time to radiate and meant they had time to react more than others. Which is why Ned should have been monitoring the happenings in King's Landing himself, not trying to convince himself that the happenings there didn't concern them. Naruto had told him repeatedly that it was necessary for Ned to be aware of the situation in King's Landing, but Ned didn't take his seriously. And his son didn't seem to be any better. Naruto worried for the North. But, worrying for the North could wait for a little while. What he and Lyanna were discussing for tonight was if tomorrow they would tell Jon of his origins. It would hurt the boy to find out about the truth, but it was his right to know. The boy was old enough and smart enough to be an adult about this. Ned would predictably bitch and moan. But Naruto truly wanted to finally see Jon get to hug his mother with the knowledge she was his mother. After that, they would have to see about Jon visiting Arthur with him, if for nothing else, than to learn from the Sword of Morning. He could worry about King's Landing the day after tomorrow. Winterfell, 297, soon to be 298 AC. Naruto Pav. The arrow hit the barrel next to the target. Bran stomped in frustration, almost making Naruto chuckle. Jon clapped a hand on Bran's shoulder and leaning in to say something in a lowered voice. Bran momentarily turned to glance at his father and mother, observing the boys' training. Next to Jon stood Robb, lightly smirking at Bran's first attempts at the bow. On Bran's other side stood Ygritte, smiling fondly at Bran and Jon. Bran drew again, loosed and missed the target. Ygritte tried to fix his drawing of the arrow, but the boy had yet to develop the muscles needed. Bran tried again, struggling to draw the bow. This time, the arrow didn't go off to the sides but over the target. Jon, along with Robb, gave out a small laugh, drawing a fit of giggles from little Rickon, who sat there watching them practice. "And which one of you was a marksman at 10? Ned asked, seeing the boys laughing at Bran's attempts. Naruto casually turned his head and stared at Ned while raising his hand. Ned noticed and simply said, "You don't count, now do you?" Naruto shrugged and lowered his hand and resumed his observing. Ned urged his son to keep going. After brief hesitation, Bran drew another arrow, and Jon leaned in to say something to the boy, followed by Ygritte leaning in and saying something that drew a small giggle from the boy, if the shaking of his shoulders was any indication. Bran drew the bow again and took aim. An arrow hit the center of the target. Bran brought his arrow forward, easing the strain on his bow, and turned to see Arya standing behind them with a bow of her own. Jon, Robb and Ygritte turned to look at the girl, the boys having a surprised look and Ygritte smiling from ear to ear. Arya gave a small curtsy that said of Bran, as the boy tossed his bow aside and dashed after his sister. Arya docked her bow and ran away while giggling. The boys laughed and yelled encouragement for Bran to run faster. "You could have done better, keep practicing, little Arya," Ygritte hollered after the two. The girl then picked up the bow Bran dropped, took one of the arrows for training, and put it in the center of the target. Jon came over, leaning in the girl's ear and whispering something as the girl drew another arrow. The girl gave him a light bump with her hip and put another arrow in the target center, practically in the same hole as her last arrow. Jon grinned while staring at Ygritte, not even caring about where the arrows were going. The talk with Jon had gone well. In relative term at least. Jon raged, cried, laughed and raged some more. Tried to take a swing at Ned. Took a swing at Naruto, who let the first hit connect, then told the boy he'd return the rest. That didn't deter Jon any though. It turned into a brief punch-out. Then he cried some more, this time hugging his mother. The end result was Jon with peace of mind. He'd visibly relaxed since. He didn't care about Cat. Couldn't give a toss either way. He was more open about his relations with Ygritte. The boy looked like a weight had lifted off him, especially when he asked if he'd have to rule someday, and the answer Naruto and Lyanna had insisted on was, "You do what you feel is right, nothing more or less." For now, Jon seemed to feel the right thing was spending time with Ygritte and his siblings. That hadn't changed, he still thought of the other Stark children as his siblings. He was also taking turns with Naruto on acting as Lyanna's bodyguard, under the pretense of he needs to learn how to act as support for his brother, for when he finally rules. Really, the mother and son just wanted to spend time together, especially since the good news. Jon was going to get a new sibling, and no one was under any misconception on who the father was. Catelyn seemed to despise the thought of another child born out of wedlock staying at Winterfell. Naruto had already recognized the child as a member of Clan Uzumaki. Naruto could argue that Jon seemed to actually put more effort into protecting Lyanna than even Naruto did. Seemed to be training harder as well. Rickon was running back and forth between the targets, where Robb was taking out the arrows, handing them to their little helper, and Jon, who put the arrows away after inspecting their condition. Jon froze for a moment and turned to look up at the balcony overlooking the training yard. Up there stood Catelyn, glaring down at Jon. Jon only gave a small smile and waved at her, then turned away and continued with his task. Catelyn's eyes widened minutely and her nostrils flared. She turned in a huff and left. Ygritte, who had followed the action, gave a sharp bark of laughter. Ned calmly walked into the yard and indicated for Naruto, Jon and Robb to come closer. They did and were informed that the Night's Watch had a runaway who was captured. The man had broken his oaths and was sentenced to death, and they would be leaving soon to carry out the sentence. Naruto nodded, turning to walk back to Lyanna's side. He informed her of what was going on. Lyanna was ambivalent on the news, feeling sad that someone had to die, yet also resolute that the man had broken his oaths and the old gods demanded their price. The man had taken his oaths in front of a weirwood. In the north, breaching such a vow was not a small issue. It was said you could never tell a lie in front of them, and breaching a vow made in front of one was tantamount to abandoning any semblance respect you had for the old gods, the ancient customs of the north, and any respect people had for you. Naruto let out a sigh. Bran would be coming with them. Jon would have to keep a strict eye on the boy. And Naruto had the dubious honor of interrogating the man being sentenced. While normally good times, Naruto just wasn't feeling it today. Later that day, a hill outside Winterfell. As they arrived, Naruto checked his bag of tools. He along with Ned got down from their horses and made their way over to the deserter sitting outside the circle meant for executions. The man looked lost in his head as the Warden of North approached alongside a man famous for the amount of blood he'd shed. The younger man kept muttering to himself. When they finally came up to him, the young man didn't react. Ned glanced to Naruto at the behavior. Naruto nodded and approached the deserter. Naruto took off the bag he is carrying and set it gently on the ground. He got on his knee and tried to make eye contact with the young man who seemed to staring into nothing, still muttering. "Hello. My name is Naruto, who are you?" Naruto tried to engage the youth. He didn't react, just kept muttering. Naruto narrowed his eyes and reached into his bag, drawing out a vial. Naruto raised it towards the sky to confirm the color and seemingly satisfied gave it a small shake while making sure the stopper stayed on. He then undid the small latch keeping it secure and opened the bottle and brought it closer to the deserter's face, right under his nose. The young man nearly retched from the action. Naruto, satisfied, shut the bottle and put it back into his bag. He then spoke to the deserter again. "Now that you're with us again, my name is Naruto. Hello. Who are you?" Naruto spoke in a steady calm voice. "Will, sir," the young man muttered. "Well then, Will, can you tell us why you ran? This will be the last time we can record such a thing. Usually it's just marked on as oath-breaking and cowardice." "The wall, the other side," the deserter seemed to clam up. "The other side? Can you please elaborate?" Naruto asked patiently. They're there. They're actually there. No one believes me, but they're actually there." Will trailed off. "Will, we already know there are people on the other side of the wall. And we also know they can be quite brutal. You knew that when you were brought there." Naruto spoke with disappointment. "No. Not that. That's not why I ran." Will snapped. "Then why?" Will whispered something. "Repeat that, Will." Naruto spoke patiently. Will swallowed and glanced north in fright, then this time it louder spoke. "White Walkers, they're there." Naruto stared at the frightened young man's eyes for a time, then cleared his throat. "Will, are you telling us that you ran from White Walkers?" "Yes, I ran to warn my family, to take them away," then young man pleaded, while Naruto hadn't blinked the whole time. "Do you swear?" Naruto leaned in closer. "I do so swear. On the old gods and the new." Will exclaimed. Naruto seemed to be mulling over the deserter's answer. Naruto licked his suddenly dry lips and spoke. "Will, I believe you when you say you ran from White Walkers to warn your family. At least you believe what you saw were White Walkers. There is no lie in your eyes or voice. But Will, if what you saw was truly any threat to the wall or the Seven Kingdoms, you should have told the Night's Watch and insisted on an investigation. Instead, you abandoned your post as the watcher on the wall and ran. The sentence shall stay the same, but rest assured, we will find out what you saw on the other side of the wall." Will shakily nodded as Naruto grabbed his bag and rose to his feet. Ned, who had been listening this whole time, took a hold of Naruto's arm as he tried to walk past and hissed into the man's ear. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Naruto simply turned to Ned and spoke in a quiet voice. "Not here. You have a duty to perform." Rest of the people escorting Ned there had gotten off their horses at this point. Theon was carrying the Stark family's Valyrian sword ice and stood waiting. Jon stood next to Bran, behind Robb. Ned blew out air through his nose and walked over to the executioner's block. The guards hauled the prisoner to his feet and escorted him to stand in front of Ned. Will glanced around hesitantly, then turned his eyes to Ned and spoke in breaking voice as Ned gazed at the scared young man. "I know I broke my oath. And I know I'm a deserter. I should have gone back to the wall and warned," but the young man lightly shook his head gathering his thoughts. "I saw what I saw. I saw the White Walkers. People need to know." Will swallowed nervously and continued. "If you get word to my family, tell them I'm no coward. Tell them I'm sorry." Ned very surreptitiously nodded his head. Then more firmly nodded to the side and Theon bore ice forward. The guards pushed the deserter on his knees and his head onto the block. Will said a prayer in a small voice as Ned drew the mighty blade and set it down, tip against the ground in a motion of prayer. Ned bowed his head, closing his eyes and spoke in the name of Robert of the House Baratheon, the first of his name, King of the Andals, and the first men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, I, Eddard of the House Stark, Lord of Winterfell and the Warden of the North, sentence you to die. Ned gave a moment of silence, then turned and in a smooth motion, hefted the blade into a downward swing. The blade didn't even seem to make contact with the neck as it cut clean through it. Will didn't have time to feel any pain from his execution. Valyrian steel, it was to be admired. Naruto turned to walk to his horse and noticed Bran was still looking at the headless corpse. He walked past the boy and ruffled his head, snapping him out of his thoughts. He got his horse ready and walked it next to Jon's. For a while they waited in silence as the others got ready and Ned was talking to Bran. Was he telling the truth? Jon broke the silence. He believed everything he said. No knowing if he was mad or speaking the truth. Either way, someone needs to go to the wall to check in on things. He might have seen wildlings preparing for an invasion and playing tricks, or he could have seen a new player. Either way, we need to know what's happening. Naruto spoke calmly. John simply nodded. Soon they were riding back towards Winterfell. Their passage was stopped by a deer corpse that was torn apart, which led to them finding a dead direwolf mother, pierced by the dead deer's antler, and its now orphan pups. 6 pups they found. 1 for each child of the Stark family. John's wolf was pure white with red eyes. Scrawny little thing it was, just like John was when younger. It was the smallest of the litter. It also hadn't made a sound since John had picked it up and shown it to Naruto. Fascinating. After they made it back to Winterfell and the pups were divided amongst the remaining children, Naruto and Lyanna looked on as John and Ygritte played the newly named ghost, the direwolf pup. The little pup seemed to enjoy tugging John's hand back and forth and trying to clamp onto Ygritte's long hair. Later in the evening, one of Naruto's contact bumped into him as they were walking to their rooms. Naruto waited until they were behind closed doors to reach into his pocket to pull out a message while sitting down. Falcon is dead. Not saved by the Grey Rat, intentional or not, unknown. Spider has contacted East. The mockingbird grows bold. Trout has fled and taken the young bird. The young lions seem pleased. Whispers say the fat stag travels north. Naruto simply showed the message to Lyanna and turned to stare into the fire in the corner of the room. Lyanna digested the contents of the message, then spoke. We're going to get pulled in, aren't we? Yes, Naruto simply whispered. He had preparations to do. They had at most 2 months till that fat fucker was here to pull them all into one. His harebrained ideas. Lyanna came from behind him and started massaging his shoulders as he sat in his chair and spoke quietly. Don't worry, we'll think of something. We? Naruto questioned, raising his eyebrows. Lyanna chuckled. We. Naruto pav. 1 week. That is the time it took for the official Raven to reach Winterfell from King's Landing, informing them of Jon Arryn's death and that the king would be marching to Winterfell. Naruto estimated that they would take about a month and a half to reach Winterfell, considering they would be moving with the queen and her wheelhouse, and the fact Robert could only take so much of the woman's nagging in a day. Robert actually might have preferred to march longer and with a quicker pace. Naruto's information network had reported that as soon as Robert was out of the city, things got eerily quiet, at least politically. The Spider had contacted the East and was now waiting for a response and holding his moves, waiting for something to trip in his web. The Mockingbird was giving the City Watch discounts on entertainment. The only interesting news for the moment was that the Dour Stag was leaving for Dragonstone as soon as he could. That wasn't like him, so to Naruto that screamed of something happening behind the scenes. That also meant he needed to get sources in Dragonstone. Nothing ever happened there as the Dour Stag avoided it like the island was made of grayscale. Then again, Naruto had met the Dour Stag's wife. Disturbed and easily led around were apt descriptors for the woman. Naruto had gone through the most likely situations to arise from Robert's visit. Naruto, Lyanna and John had agreed that as soon as the king left back south, John and Naruto would be visiting the wall to get an accurate report on its condition. That was the main plan. It was open for change given multiple situations, ranging from Ned going south with Robert, which would mean Naruto would have to go along them to south to watch Ned's back, Naruto going by himself if one of the Lannisters got any wind of Jon's heritage and him needing to disappear for a while, or even Lyanna going in a situation where Naruto and Jon were both unable to go. The last option wasn't wanted in any way, especially by Lyanna, since at that point, she wouldn't be able to ride horses safely and would be taken in a wheelhouse. Naruto had a strong guess on why Robert was coming north, and he still couldn't have given a damn if Tuin would have been made the next hand of the king. Tuin was someone who got things done. The man was a capable leader, but knew that war was not a preferred method and wasn't one to waste good troops on fighting any useless wars, especially against the north for no reason. Ned wasn't against any other kingdom either. Problem was, Ned didn't want to play the game. That was like blinding yourself on purpose and then pretending you didn't need the eye in the first place. The amount of information Ned didn't have access to was worrying. Naruto could have been whispering in his ear about every little thing happening, but the man wouldn't have necessarily cared. In Naruto's opinion, Tuin or someone similar was necessary for Robert to keeping his seat. Tuin wanted to advance his own family's interests, and right now making all the kingdoms richer was in his interests because in the end all the money flowed to them since they had the throne down the line. War wasn't necessary or preferred right now or in the future. In fact, Naruto had at one point requested permission from Ned to write to Tuin with Ned's signature. The subject of the letter was supplies and men for the wall. Now, when selling an idea to anyone, the most important part is to align your interests with theirs. Simply giving the idea that a well-supplied and manned wall keeps anyone on the other side out. Keeping them out keeps the Seven Kingdoms happy since they don't have to worry for wildlings. It also served a good purpose of taking unwanted people of your hands, and you wouldn't have to worry for idle hands taking up arms or getting ideas of grandeur. And Naruto didn't have to say it, but the letter would also give Tuin the idea of having one of his men as the Lord Commander on the wall. In Tuin's mind that would be an entire base of operations against the North in the future if things went as planned or not as planned. Naruto also might have sent information through some of his sources on the wall after he was informed Tuin was doing as asked. And if those sources told the Lord Commander of what Tuin might be planning, then oh well. The wall got supplies and man and Naruto only had to write 2 letters while endearing Ned to Tuin a bit even if the old lion thought Ned a bit foolish for providing such an opportunity. Lyanna was showing already. Her usually smooth and tough midriff had a baby bump. In a weird, claiming your mate way it was kind of sexy. Lyanna seemed to have calmed somewhat, just being happy looking down at her stomach with warm eyes sometimes. He thought the devils themselves would be clawing at Winterfell's door when she showed him a quilt she had made for their baby. She hated that sort of stuff. Now she was spending more time with Sansa. The young girl tried to hide it under her veneer of ladylike behavior, but the fact that she had brought Lyanna multiple baby clothes told everyone she was excited to see a baby. Ygritte was also excited to meet the newest addition to Clan Uzumaki. Healthy children were a treasure beyond the wall. Even holding one was considered a story to boast about. Jon was very excited to meet his new sibling, even he had to hide it publicly. The month and a half had run out quicker than Naruto thought. His sources said that they were due any day now. Then the day came. Naruto was escorting Lyanna to the yard to greet the king. Jon, Rob, and Theon had their hair cut a short while ago. Ygritte was still making fun of Jon's short hair and commenting that she finally looked prettier than him. Lyanna also demanded Naruto had the crow's nest referred to as his hair cut down. Naruto couldn't give a toss either way so did as told. Now, here they stood, waiting for the king to arrive. Lyanna and Naruto had chosen to stand in line after the Stark children. Jon stood behind Arya if the need came to keep her in line. Finally, the man rode through the gates and Naruto kneeled along the people gathered there. Gods. The nickname Fat Stag was on the money. Oh Robert, the amount of respect I had for you has gone down even more. During the Greyjoy rebellion, he was at least capable of swinging his warhammer. Now the man looked like he couldn't lift it up. As he came to a stop and the servants came, bringing stairs for the fat man to get down, even struggling with that, Naruto felt like covering his eyes to this travesty of a man. A great beard covered his neck now. The man wore furs and had a long sword at his side. He marched in front of Ned and stopped, gazing down at his friend. He lightly indicated with his right hand for Ned to rise. As Ned rose, everyone else followed right on his heels. Your Grace, Ned bowed slightly. Robert lightly furrowed his brows and tilted his head before straightening. He then eyed Ned from top to bottom in severe thought. You've got fat, Robert told Ned. Naruto couldn't help it as the small snort left him. Ned momentarily turned to glare as silence descended on the yard, then turned back to Robert and down at the king's belly. That set off Robert in laughter, with Ned joining in. The two men hugged and slapped each other in the back. As they separated, Robert turned to Ned's left side with an exclamation of cat and gave a one-armed hug to the Lady of Winterfell. As they separated, Robert messed up little Rickon's hair as the young boy stood next to his mother. Robert returned in front of Ned. 9 years, why haven't I seen you? Where the hell have you been? Guarding the north for you, your grace. Winterfell is yours. Ned spoke with a wry grin as behind the king the queen and her children exited her wheelhouse. Arya tried to whisper, more of an exclamation truthfully, to Sansa about where the imp was, only to get told to shut up by the older sister. That drew Robert's attention from Ned. Who have we here? He approached the Stark children. Next to Ned, trying to look severe, was Rob. You must be Rob. Robert offered his hand and gave a strong shake to the young man. He moved on to look at Sansa and simply commented what a pretty one she was, getting red cheeks from the girl as she ducked her head. As he came to stand in front of Arya, who was looking at the king less than impressed, he inquired the young girl's name. Arya gave her name and Robert moved on with a nod of his head. When he moved on to Bran, he requested the boy to show off his muscles, which he did, getting a chuckle from Robert and an exclamation that he'd be fine soldier. Then he finally turned to Lyanna, who Naruto stood behind. He gave Lyanna a bow and showed an open hand, requesting to kiss her hand. She gave her hand and gave it a quick peck. As Robert bowed, he noticed her stomach. He rose his head, a vein bulging from his forehead. Lyanna lightly smiled and simply spoke the next member of Clan Uzumaki, while indicating behind her to Naruto. Robert made eye contact and Naruto only rose an eyebrow in return. After a moment, Naruto lightly with his head and said, your grace. Robert gritted his teeth and turned back to Ned, who was greeting the queen. Take me to your solar, we have things to speak on. Robert spoke tightly. We've been writing for a month and a half, my love. Surely that can wait. Cersei fluttered her eyelashes as she tried to appeal to her husband. Robert completely ignored her and only indicated for Ned to lead. Ned hesitated for a moment but left his spot, leaving the kingly procession and the people of Winterfell to look at each other awkwardly across the yard in silence. Naruto decided to break the ice by clearing his sinuses and spat a glob of snot off to the side that got a snort of laughter out of Lyanna and Arya. Kat turned with shock on her face to look at him only having a bored look on his face and not reacting to the glare had received moments later. It had the intended consequence of breaking the ice, and people finally began to move, with Catelyn leading her children to greet the queen and her brood. Naruto gazed on passively as Jaime Lannister rode out of the gate towards Wintertown. He and Lyanna gravitated towards the throng of people greeting the queen. Cersei Lannister, the queen, clapped eyes on Lyanna, straightening her back and lifting her chins, so it almost looked like she was staring down at Lyanna along her nose. Naruto had to clamp down on the laughter that almost bubbled out of him at the sight. "So, you're the Lyanna Stark I've heard so much about." Cersei spoke, a mocking tone coloring her speech. "I had not heard you'd gotten married. I guess congratulations are in place. Whose is the baby you carry?" Lyanna only seemed to grin wolfishly. "Oh, you need not worry. I haven't married. The baby I carry is the progeny of the greatest warrior this world has ever seen. I was lucky that way. The things he can do with that sword of his are truly remarkable. How have you, are you satisfied with the great king?" The final part almost sounded like Lyanna would start laughing as she said it. Cersei's eye twitched. She sniffed and let her brood inside the castle. Kat gave a glare to Lyanna. It seemed like her birthday had come early. The crown prince, who had been following his mother like a puppy, gave Lyanna a glare. Naruto wondered if anyone would notice if the prince disappeared for good. The look in the brat's eye was comparable to Ramsay Snow's. Jon quietly came to stand by Naruto. "Should I show him the view from one of the towers?" Jon spoke quietly. "No, not yet anyway," Naruto spoke quietly. "Jon hummed. Lady Catelyn told me I was not to attend the feast." Lyanna spoke up from staring after Cersei and Catelyn. "No, you'll come. You'll sit at my side to guard me. We'll no sit with the family. If the trout has something to say, she can say it to me." Naruto chuckled. "You heard the lady of the house." Jon could only shake his head. At night, the hall. The feast was fun. Since Jon was not sitting with the family and the royal family, Ygritte had also come along. Their little group of Ygritte, Jon, Lyanna and Naruto were having great fun at the moment, dubbing the minute facial tics flashing across the queen's dour visage as she stared at the king making a fool of himself and by extension, her. "Oh, how I wish father didn't give me to this man. I wish he'd give me a castle of my own," Ygritte spoke, laughing while looking at the queen. "There goes my husband, the fattest and drunkest man in the land," Jon chuckled. The game changed when Catelyn spoke something to the queen and she replied. Then new game involved them making up what they were saying. It was surprising to the dubbers when the two ladies started comparing their husbands. It was all in good joke, of course. The game got boring and they moved on to other subjects that got boring as well, so they decided they had enough food for the moment and got out to the yard for some late night training for Jon and Ygritte as they took on Naruto with wooden swords. They were interrupted when Benjen Stark, brother to Ned and Lyanna, rode into the yard. "Is he dead yet?" Benjen poked fun as Naruto smacked around the youth lightly. "No," Jon groaned after getting his leg swept. Ygritte wasn't doing much better as she got disarmed with a rap to the knuckles. "Maybe you want to try, Benjen. It's been a while since we trained." Naruto laughed as they stopped to greet the man. "Not on your life," Benjen spoke as he hugged his sister carefully, trying to act delicate with her stomach. He then lightly rubbed the stomach and spoke quietly. "Hello there, niece or nephew." He grinned at Lyanna, who just smiled warmly. "Uncle Benjen," Jon greeted after getting up and walking over to give a hug. Benjen gave laugh. "You've got bigger." He looked his nephew up and down. "Rode all day, didn't want to leave you all alone with the Lannisters. Shouldn't you be at the feast?" Naruto spoke up. "We decided on some mid-feast exercise. The getting was good, but we'll wait for the king to truly be drunk for the real entertainment to begin." Benjen nodded and moved to Ygritte. "Well, hello there. And who might you be?" "What's it you crow?" Ygritte spoke with a sort of slur Benjen knew was most commonly found in one place. He gazed at the young woman for a moment until Naruto spoke up. "Don't mind Ygritte, she helps me keep Jon in line with her feminine wiles." Benjen cracked up and turned to Jon, who was turning beet red. He then looked to Ygritte with a smile. "Well, don't let me keep you then," and indicated to Jon. Ygritte gave a half grin and sauntered over to Jon and gave him a deep kiss. As they separated, Jon looked to be in a daze. Naruto barked in laughter. "See? Much easier to lead with a carrot than stick, if you ask me." Benjen only gave a faux frown. "You didn't use that with me." Lyanna cuffed the back of his head, slightly getting a laugh from her younger brother. "Well, I'll go save Ned from his quests. Wish me luck." The man walked inside. Naruto and Jon turned towards a hallway shrouded with shadows. A surprised voice spoke. "Your uncle's in the Night's Watch." Jon calmly approached the voice. What are you doing back there? Out stepped Tyrion the Imp Lannister. The nickname coming from the fact he was born a dwarf. Preparing for a night with your family. Lady Stark, Sir Naruto the shorter man nodded to the pair, taking a sip of his wine cup, he then looked to Ygritte with a light smile, and this lovely young thing would be? Ygritte came the answer. Ygritte. Tyrion tasted the name with a smile, such a lovely name for such a fiery beauty. He then turned to Jon. I've always wanted to see the wall. Tyrion walked to a fence and leaned on it. Tyrion Lannister, the Queen's brother. Jon spoke. My greatest accomplishment. Tyrion spoke quickly, sidestepping the subject of his relations while looking down at his cup, then looking up to Jon. And you're Ned Stark's bastard, aren't you? Jon shifted from one leg to another. So they tell me. He spoke quietly. Did I offend you? Sorry. Tyrion spoke lackadaisically. You are the bastard though. Let me give you some advice, young man. Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor and it can never be used to hurt you. Jon hummed, gazing down at the shorter man. I'd rather just ignore it. In my mind there is only one who can judge me at the end of my life. And that happens to be me. Fuck what everyone else says. Tyrion tilted his head while looking at the young man. May I join you in your table, Jon? Jon nodded lightly. It's fine with me. Tyrion grinned and looked to the other people there. And do I have permission from you to join? He got nods in return and grinned wider. Come, I must tell you all a story of a jackass, a brothel and a honeycomb. The rest of the party followed the rather amusing man inside. What if Naruto was in Game of Thrones? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.